So good to see everyone. Thank you so much for coming along. How good is it to be back doing events in person? It's cool, isn't it? Hey. So if you don't know me, I'm Colin McDonald. I started running these events a few years before COVID, and I know a bunch of you came along to some of them. We did them in Dundee, Edinburgh, and Glasgow. And they started from me being in London one time and chatting to someone who said they would like to get to know more people in the Scottish games industry. Was there some events that they could come up here and meet everyone at? And I said, not really. Ridiculous as it seems, we end up meeting each other out in GDC and at Paris Game Connection and Cologne at Gamescom and stuff. It's mental, even though we live a few miles from each other. So there's nothing to get us together in Scotland. And he said, oh, that's a shame, because if there was, we could have put $1,000 or $2 behind the bar. And I was like, ooh, okay. And that was how these events kind of started, whenever that was, 3 or 4 years ago. But it's not just about getting a free drink, although it's great that we have got sponsors. We'll get onto that, and we get a free drink. The real purpose of these is to get a bunch of interesting speakers up, to learn something, and to give organizations outside of the games industry and outside of Scotland an excuse to come and visit us. Because you'll see tonight, we've got an amazing selection of speakers, a bunch of whom have flown in from various places. And they didn't take much persuading. They just needed an excuse, because they know what Scotland's game dev scene is capable of. They just needed an invitation to something. And they've bitten my arm off to come up and see us. Plus, I think it's just great for us as an industry to get out and network as well. So I'm hoping we do these again. What would be great is to get more people moving around the cities. So it would be great to see some of you up in Dundee or Edinburgh, see some people from Edinburgh through here, and vice versa. So I don't know how we encourage that, but if you've got any ideas, it would be great to do, because we're really not that far apart. It'd be great to get people mingling a bit more. To keep to our schedule tonight, all of our talks will need to start promptly at about 30:30 every hour, so 4:30, 5:30, 6:30. There'll be blocks of normally 3 speakers each, after which we'll have a break for about half an hour to let you go and chat to our speakers. We're going to put the speakers that have just been on in that wee alcove off to the side there, so it's easy to find them. Not so much a problem here. Dundee last night was absolutely rammed, so we could have done with something like this last night, but we'll try it tonight. So you'll find the speakers there in the break immediately after the block they speak in. For those watching online again, because all of this is live streamed, give everyone a wave that's watching online. Hooray! All of this is going out online. If you're watching online and want to have a chat with other people that are watching online, there's the Discord set up. So in a browser, punch in discord.gamestalks.live. That's discord.gamestalks.live. There will be a ticker running along the bottom of the screen with that link the whole evening. So jump onto the Discord and you can get chatting to other people that are watching live as well. All these events that we've done to date have always raised a bit of money for a good cause. We've supported the NHS in the past, we've supported Special Effect, we've had some of the speakers up from some of these places. So we've got a bunch of prizes from an array of generous companies that we're going to raffle tonight, with all the proceeds going to the Ukrainian Red Cross to help folk out there affected by the situation. So up for grabs are a whole bunch of Steam code packs with various games. We have got a pack from Armour Games, who have given us codes for Sunny, Don't Escape, 4 Days to Survive, Not to Crawl, and Solus 128. We've got a pack from Yogscast, which gives you access to all of their current and future games. So that's games like Cave Blazers, Landlord Super, Brunch Club, Drink More Glurp, and the upcoming Trolley Problem and Golfy. We've got a pack from Focus Entertainment, who we're going to be meeting later on tonight as well. They've given us codes to Aliens Fireteam, Hard Space Shipbreaker, Shady Part of Me, and SnowRunner. We've got a pack from Humble Games. That includes Unpacking, Unsighted, Archvale, and The Wild at Heart. We've got a pack from the folks at No More Robots. They've given us Descenders, Let's Build a Zoo, and Not Tonight 2. We've got a pack from Modern Wolf, which includes Necronator, Astronauts, Cosmocrats, Rogue State Revolution, and Mecha Jammer. And as well as those Steam packs that we've got up for grabs, we also have a Game Maker Studio Enterprise license, courtesy of Opera, up in Dundee. Merge Games are offering up a physical copy of a signature edition game of your choice. The Scottish Games Network are offering up a Scottish Games Week VIP pass. That's something they're hoping to run in the autumn. The British Esports Association have got a hoodie and a t-shirt. Zappity, also up in Dundee, I've got a goodie bag, which includes a t-shirt, squeeze ball, executive pen, face mask, £50 Steam voucher, and an invitation to join the closed beta of their Unity collaboration and file storage platform. And the nice folks at Pocket Sized Hands, who will also be meeting tonight, have offered up a £50 Steam voucher as well. So all of those prizes will be drawn at 9:30 tonight. So any ticket that's bought today, whether it's here in Glasgow or online, goes into that draw at 9:30 tonight. But we also have one other very special prize that we only have one of, because we've been given these Steam code packs out in Edinburgh and Dundee as well. But we have one stunning Philips HDK monitor with Ambiglow. We've only got one of those. And tickets that have been sold over the last two nights as well as tonight will all be put into one prize draw, and we'll draw that tonight. So it might not be someone here, it might not be someone that's bought a ticket today, but anyone that's bought a ticket this week will be entered into the draw for that Philips monitor. Tickets for the raffle are basically £5 each. For every £5 of a donation to the Ukrainian Red Cross, we'll allocate a ticket to you. And this applies both to everyone here in Glasgow and watching online. And we need you to make your donation by 9 o'clock so that we can process all the names and put it all into the wheel of names, things that we'll use to pick the winners. You can donate by going to ukraine.gamestalks.live. The link will come up on the screen at every break. So you can do it from your phone. I tested it. Punch in ukraine.gamestalks.live and that will redirect you to the Just Giving page that we've set up. We've raised over £1,200 already. It'd be amazing to get to 1,500. So we're hoping Glasgow can get us over the line. If you have some of that old-fashioned cash stuff that you've not been able to spend in the last couple of years and want rid of it, Sean and Ruben that checked you in on the door can sell you a physical raffle ticket. So just see them at any of the breaks. I would like to thank all the sponsors that without whose help we wouldn't have been able to run these at this time. So I need to thank the Scottish Government's tech ecosystem, In-Game, Outplay Entertainment, Hyperluminal Games, Pocket Size Hands, Sheridan's, Glitchers, Escape Technologies, Rivet Games, and Speech Graphics. So please join me in giving all of those kind sponsors a hand. Thank you. I would also like to thank Ethan for engineering the audio, who's up in the sound booth at the back. Thank you very much, Ethan. He's been trailing around Dundee, Edinburgh, and Glasgow all week, so is even more tired than I am. And I would also like to thank Sean and Ruben, who have been helping out on the door, get everyone checked in safely and selling the raffle tickets. They're both game students up at Abertay, so do make sure you catch them over the night as well. And I'd like to thank the venue for having us. They've had to find random chairs at the last minute and put up with our demands for figuring out the audio and the lighting and everything like that. It's just great to be back out in person, to be able to come to venues in person and spend money here and get a drink, which we've not been able to do for so long. So thank you to them. And I'd just like to ask that we give all of our speakers a warm welcome as they come up, and please respect them when they're chatting, and to respect other attendees by not talking while they're talking. We've got breaks every half an hour. If you want to chat meantime, just nip outside if you need to pick up a conversation with someone. Otherwise, we'll let them get on with their conversations. So, without further ado, we will kick off with our talks. So we start with someone who's not just a local Scottish developer, but a Scottish games lecturer, course leader, in fact, and a BAFTA Scotland award winner. So I would like to thank Tom Methven from Amicable Animal.
Right. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Colin, for that slightly terrifying welcome. So, as Colin said, my name's Tom. I'm also known as Amicable Animal online. I'm a local indie developer from Edinburgh, which I know is a contentious statement. So to get you back on board, I've been traveling around Scotland the last 3 days, and I just want to say, fuck ScotRail. So now hopefully everyone's back on board. We can continue. I'm also the program leader over at Edinburgh Napier for the games dev course as well. And I've been making games since I was about 4 years old, but I've been kind of properly doing it again, for whatever properly means, for the last 4 or 5 years. So now, because of the other thing Colin said, I have to start every talk I give with this photo, because how often do you get to have this photo? And also, Stephen, who's also here tonight, you can talk to, will be able to corroborate this. I am so unbelievably drunk and nervous in this photo, and it's the first time I wore a suit in about 4 years because of COVID. So I think this is the best photo I'm going to get for a very long time. But what do I actually make? Well, I make what I self-describe as weird glowy nonsense. What I mean by that is I really like making kind of relatively kind of retro styled games, i.e. simple gameplay loops, and then pushing them as far as I can and exploring them and doing weird stuff. So like a gem up in the top right is sort of what if Tetris, but backwards, and it doesn't tell you how to play, and the game gets really, really angry when you get good at it and turns itself off, which really, really shocks people. It's good fun. My biggest game, Solus 128, in the bottom left, is kind of a remake of something like Reflector, but also secretly a Metroidvania and quite weirdly sinister. And I'll get back to the one in the bottom right soon. Also, my producer on Solus 128 yesterday came up with a name for what I do, and I'm so pissed off at how good it is that I'm going to share it with you. He called my style Doom and Bloom, and I love it. And I'm also really annoyed that he didn't come up with that before we launched Solus, because that would have been really good on the Steam page. But anyway, why am I here? What am I talking to you about today? Well, I wanted to speak mainly because of these sorts of articles. Now, I don't know if you know this, and apologies in advance if any of you have written something like this, but these articles are bollocks, right? Just straight up self-congratulatory shit, right? And they annoy me so much, not just because they're insulting our intelligence, but because I think they actively damage the games industry. Like, first of all, why would you ever believe that one on the bottom? They don't even know what an iPhone or an Android looks like, right? So how are they going to know anything about how they make a mobile game? They've not even seen one, right? But more than that, like, these articles have a couple of real major problems that I think puts people off from making games, especially new people from making games, and also stops people from making more interesting games. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this today. Now, the first problem with them, obviously, is I'm sure you all know about survivorship bias, right? But these are just survivorship bias, right? It's somebody saying, I made a successful game, and then telling you how they made it after they made the successful game, right? That's rubbish. Actually, what happened is they did something good, or they got a bit lucky, or a bit of both. And then they tried to figure out why it was successful afterwards. And that's bollocks. If they did the same thing again 2 years later, or they were somebody else, it wouldn't happen. Like, it's when a YouTuber makes a big deal about how I've made a new game and look how popular it is. Of course you have. You've already got 1 million followers. It doesn't mean your game was any good. It just means you've already got an audience. And that's great, right? Getting an audience and marketing we'll hear about is a really big and important thing. But the other side of this is that we'll hear a lot today from kind of publishers and people about how you can get a better chance of success. And that's all really important. And you should do it and you should listen to it and it's exciting. But it's also quite often a really myopic view of what success is, right? What I mean by that is obviously publishers want to make money, right? That's it. Like, yeah, there are also people, they want to make cool games. They want to help you make cool games, but fundamentally they're there to make the money. And that's only one view of what a successful game is, right? So Solace 1-8 is in a lot of ways a commercial failure, right? The fact I'm here, the fact I'm still a lecturer, the fact I'm not on a yacht should tell you this hasn't made me enough money that I don't have to deal with ScotRail anymore, right? But that's a really weird way of looking at it. And it's a way it's a thing I struggled with for quite a few, like for a year after I launched it, right? Because actually, it's not a failure, right? If I went back to when I first started making it and told myself, you're going to port this game to Switch yourself, you're going to get a Switch dev kit in your house, I would have lost my fucking mind, because that's a dream from when I was like 4 years old to launch something on a Switch, on a Nintendo console, right? If you then told me I'd appear on like top 10 game of the year list with this game, or that we've been the Scottish BAFTA, which by the way, I still don't believe. And I occasionally just have to occasionally touch to make sure it is really there, right? If you told me that Alan Hazelden, Dracnet, who makes stuff like a Monsters Expedition and a Cosmic Express, would have liked my game, I'd have gone, no, that's rubbish. He's a proper game developer, right? He can't like my little game. And like all of these things are such a huge thing for success for me, but it's also a really dangerous thing because it slips, right? When I first started making it, any of these would have made me super excited. But by the time I got to the end of it, because I got a publisher, because I was working with people, what constitutes success starts getting further and further away from you. And you have to be really careful about that, because you need to go back and think, what was success for me when I started? Not what was success 2 days before launch, because otherwise you'll always be disappointed by your game, no matter how successful it is. And that's really sad. And it puts off a lot of people from making their second game. And I want there to be more weird, interesting, unique stuff from small teams, weird creators and diverse people out there. Which leads me to my second point, right? Like, or the kind of summation of this point, I suppose, which is how you define success is really important, right? Yeah, I didn't go and get my yacht, but I'm now able to work 2 days a week, specifically on my dev stuff, and do my development, my program leadership on the side. And that's great. It means now when I do my dev stuff, I can do even weirder stuff, and I don't have to worry, because if it goes wrong, I'm not going to go out of business. I can still keep making, and that's really freeing. Like, getting a publisher is great, and I have a relationship with these people I really like, who are really supportive, and I've leveraged it into going and getting funding from other places. There's lots of different routes to being successful in games, and it's really important to remember that, and not just listen to the whole, like, you need to go and get £250,000 from a publisher. That's the only way you can be successful, because it's just not true. Related to this as well, I think niche games are one of the most important things in the games industry, right? And what I talk about by niche games is they tend to be things on Steam which will have, maybe if they're lucky, 50 or 100 reviews. So they're smaller, kind of more directed games directed for a certain market. So like Solace, I made because nobody made this game that I had in my head, and I just wanted it to exist. And there's loads of other games like this, like Temple of Snake, which is made by a friend of mine, Nick Bell, over in Edinburgh, which is like, what if Snake, but also an open world dungeon game. And it's great. Super Cable Boy is this in like really amazingly well-made persistent platformer. Suro is the most beautiful board game I've ever seen. And they made an even more beautiful digital version. But I saw one person nodding. I think we're the only two people who've ever played it, right? Oh, amazing. So at least half a dozen people have played this game. But it's still relatively niche. But this is exciting, right? Because all these games have really cool, interesting, unique ideas that would not be able to be made into a huge, big budget game, because then a type of game that not everybody will like. But importantly, some people will fucking love them. Like, you've probably heard this phrase that, like, it's very rare that a massive AAA game is anybody's favorite game, but these smaller games will be somebody's absolute favorite game. And you can see this by the fact that they get really high, like, positive ratings on Steam. I can't believe we're currently, until one of you fucks this up for me, 100% like positive on Steam right now. And that's amazing. And this gives this space for people to make these really creative, personal, interesting and weird games that can build you a market. They can build you a following, right? We have people in the Discord now who spent days of their life writing walkthroughs for Solace. They know the game better than I do. I can't remember how to solve half the levels anymore, right? we had a speedrunner completed in under an hour. And the best I've done is about an hour and 40 minutes. And you're like, did you do that? I watched the playthrough. I still don't know how they did that. I was just like, God damn. But like, these people really, really loved the game because it was specifically like specific enough that it could be something that they genuinely loved. And I think that's really, really important and valuable. And the one last point I will say about niche games, because I think, especially with the Elden Ring conversations at the moment, this is even more important. Niche games are not games that exclude players. They are games that are for, somebody who wants to play that type of game. But you shouldn't exclude players. You should make them welcoming to anybody who wants to play that type of game. So Solace was designed from the ground up to be colorblind friendly. It was through its entire DNA. We worked with accessibility consultants to make it easier for people with neurodiversity, visual processing issues, motor issues to play, right? We gave hints. We gave, translated to 29 languages in Steam, including hopefully correct Arabic, right? All of this stuff. We wanted anybody who wanted to play the game to be able to play the game and not exclude them. So being niche doesn't mean you don't want people to play it. Actually, what it means is you want as many people to play that, but you're just explicit about what the game is before people pick it up, and then they'll be happy. So, finally, what am I doing now? Well, as I've sort of already hinted at, I'm now kind of continuing working on more weird glowing nonsense or doom and bloom stuff, right? And basically, I'm working on a weird experimental arcade puzzler, all mixed up with SCP kind of control-esque haunted object stuff. Now, at this stage, I don't know if it's going to be good. It's going to be fun. Whether it's going to be good, we'll find out further down the road. But what's really nice is because I can feel like, by my own definition of success with Solace, that was perhaps a little bit too successful. I can now go and do something that will hopefully be even weirder and more interesting. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. Thank you so much for listening to me. I've been doing this all 3 nights. I'm going to go sit in that niche and have a little nap, but please do feel free to come and wake me up if you want to talk to me. I'd love to talk to everybody about games and all this sort of stuff because it's a massive passion of mine. But cheers very much, and hope I will see some of you around. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Tom. Okay, so our next speaker is from a company that are both a publisher and a storefront in their own right. He might have a Scottish name, but he's travelled up from further south of the border, especially just to meet us all. So please welcome from Green Man Gaming, their head of publishing, Ian. Your surname has escaped my brain. Ian McGregor. Come up, Ian.
Colin's killed it.
There we go. It's tired. It's had a long week.
Yeah. Brilliant. Hi, everyone. My name is Ian McGregor. You'll notice that I don't sound remotely Scottish. I think we used to be, but now I'm not. But the last time I was here in Glasgow, my brother was born. I'm not quite sure why, but he was born here anyway. I wasn't. I was born in Wales. I'm not Welsh either. I am actually from down south. But it is fantastic to be back up here in Scotland. I'm from Green Man Gaming. Does anyone know who we are? Anyone buy games from us? Put your hands up, because I can actually see people tonight. Colin does. No, he doesn't. Good. Well, thank you. And I've said thank you because, I never get a chance to say thank you to our customers, but thank you for supporting us. I thought I'd start really quickly by talking about who am I. It's not a trick question. It's not something I'm about to ask you. My name's Ian. I got into games in a sort of roundabout way. And the reason I tell this story is I think that people come, and when you're in the industry, you'll meet all sorts of people that have come from different backgrounds. When I was at school, college, whatever, I was a complete idiot. I mean, to be honest, not much has changed. I think I failed absolutely everything that I could fail. Consequently, I joined the army. I stayed in the army for about 9 years, which was fantastic. But in the pointy, stabby bit, not on the sort of hide at the back bit, I was very much at the front. And that was kind of cool. And it's sort of where I grew up. But I came from a very sheltered environment, and I didn't really know that you could actually do this as a job. I mean, how cool is this? Yeah. How cool. The fact that I didn't get into this business until I was in my early 30s is tragic. It's absolutely tragic. So I eventually got into games via a sort of roundabout route in 2004, and using guile and cunning managed to land a job at EA, and I led their international marketing and worked on some fantastic brands, FIFA, Battlefield, Potter, Sims, etc. So that was kind of cool. And what was great was at EA, I was allowed access to the developer, which was great. And because I actually have an arty background, sort of, I actually got on with them quite well. So it was great hanging out with the guys at, all over the place, Black, Criterion, DICE, and some of the fantastic studios in Vancouver. I left EA, joined Activision, their arch enemy, did some Call of Duty, did a bit of Destiny, did Skylanders, and then joined Green Man Gaming. So, here I am. Green Man Gaming, we're a bit of a weird business. And I think, when we meet and when we look at the ecosystem that's available to you, we heard from Tom, very wise words. You'll hear from other people again that will tell you at all costs, do not look into my eyes, okay? Because actually I'm a publisher and it's horrible. I'm a terrible beast, okay? So Green Man Gaming, we are a publisher. We're a new publisher. We've only been doing it for about 4 years. We've published 29 games. Well, we've launched 2 this year. Both of them are doing really well. Which is really due to the partnership, I think, that we bring to the party. The caveat I'll bring to that statement is that it's not for everyone. And I think, like Tom says, you can never let a publisher, sort of ruin your creativity. They're there to advise you, on different things. And I'll come on to that in a bit. We're also a distributor, and distribution is really important. The world has imploded, bricks and mortar retail. It's getting harder and harder. Sold Out, who are now called something else, I think, made a punchy statement in the press today that packaged goods are still very much alive. Barely, I think would be my view. But I would do, because I'm a digital guy. So Steam will always be your number one output. If you're a PC game developer, you will do 99% of your sales, up there. Third-party distribution, on the other hand, can add money on top, and it reaches a different consumer. It reaches people who might not be able to afford full price. And typically what we find when we do third-party distribution for developers, publishers, etc., it adds somewhere between 5% on the low point and about 20% on the upper side to their global revenue, which, if you're doing quite well, is kind of cool. I mean, it's enough to get a round of drinks in, which I look forward to receiving later. We're also a retailer. We've been doing it for 11 years. There is not much that we don't know about it. We do it around the world. And it's not about what we do and the games we shift. It's about what we've learned, because every transaction leaves a data trail, and that data trail goes into our server. So I can see cross-platform, cross-publisher, cross-genre. So as a publisher, when I'm looking at forecasts, when I'm looking at benchmark, I can help you. Yeah, don't look into my eyes. I can help you. Okay. Last 2 slides. The first one really is for you, and I think you'll hear little bits about this. You'll hear people, I think, agree. Some people slightly disagree. It doesn't really matter. This is my advice, I think, based on the 1,000 games we see a year and the fantastic developers we work with. And we always ask them this. And, before you go and meet someone, if you think you need a publisher, and you might not, don't look into my eyes. What's your plan? Where do you want to go? What's your vision? Where do you want to take your, take your game? How will you fund it? Everyone's got to eat. The kit's expensive. The technology is expensive. Servers are expensive. How are you going to fund it? How will you fund the company? How will you fund development? How will you reach gamers? How will you start that process of showing your thing to the community? Because you've got to start from day one. Don't leave marketing to the end. Don't leave building a Discord to the end. Don't leave building a community to the end. Many people do that, and it's a real missed opportunity. How will you distribute? How will you think about, where you want your game to go? Do you want to put it up on Steam? If you build it, they will come, right? And if you just no, they won't. They won't. It's really hard to get noticed on Steam. I did a stat the last couple of talks. How many products in the average large supermarket? Anyone like to have a guess? It's between 49,999 and 50,000. It's about 50,000. How many products on Steam? About 50,000. If I hid your game, in a supermarket and asked you to go and find it, that's what you're asking consumers to do. So you have to work, on working on that visibility. Your battery's running low, Colin.
Someone should have plugged that in. That may be me.
I'll keep going. How will you secure your studio's future? Go next. That's what I'm going to do. Fine. We'll skip on. So one thing I learned in the army is no plan survives contact with the enemy, and the enemy is probably me, actually, in all to all intensive purposes. So think about what you want to do, because the energy and the vision and the creativity, it'll bind you as a group together. If you are in a group or if you're developing on your own, really think about, sort of where you want to go. And then I think, when I think about the things I can help you with, and you might not want this, you might want some, or a bit, or a little bit, or a bit more, or whatever. I provide money. I do. I'm not one of those nasty people that takes control of your IP and therefore your soul. We do not do that. We do not do that. But the funding process can be challenging. What we try and do, and I'm sure that many other publishers do the same, is try and approach it in a way that is fair, okay? Because you've built your dream. I really don't want to spoil it. I need you to be successful if I'm going to be successful. So it's a symbiotic thing. We try not to take too much, if that makes sense. And every contract is different. There is no cookie cutter approach to funding, okay? And we will always try and be as transparent as possible. Dev support. We've got some pretty experienced people who specialize in the indie space. It's not me. I'm clearly the console guy done good. But we have people, in the office, and this is all they do. If you need someone, who's a sort of an old school publisher who understands the ropes, who's seen things fall off, break, whatever, then we have that. Some people need more, some people need less. Even if it's just about bouncing an idea, then we can provide that support for you. Distribution I've talked about, so I'll skip over that. We can get into that, or you can grab me in a break. Marketing, I've sort of talked about that a little bit. Again, there's no one size fits all. What I have learned is that over the last 2 years, the way that we take our games to market has changed dramatically. So the days of, in my glory days of a massive TV commercial and a whatever, that's all gone. Yeah, we do not do that, anymore. And for indies, it's all about, for us, grassroots, finding the right people at the right time and getting them to get as excited about things as we are. It takes real time to find those the right people. And then lastly, I think, it's often sort of overlooked. It's around partnership. There'll be good days and there'll be bad days. There'll be days when you love us. There'll be days when you hate me. It's just the way it goes. What we try and do is make sure that we manage out those problems. No one ever likes to go to bed in an argument, whether it's development or a life stage thing. I mean, trust me, it works. If you'd like to talk about that, grab me. I've overshot. That's me. That's my LinkedIn. Scan me, stalk me. Lots of people have. I'm not a scary person. If you want to find out any of that, just grab me and we'll have a chat. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mr. McGregor. I'm never going to forget that now. Thank you. So Ian and Tom will be in the little alcove there. Go and stalk them over this next break. We'll take a break. We'll come back in like 20-25 minutes for our next set of speakers. Do remember to buy raffle tickets if you want to donate to a good cause and be in with a chance. We've got quite a lot of prizes for the size of the audience, so your odds are pretty good. Donate at ukraine.gamestalks.live. Thank you. See you in 20 minutes or so. Fantastic. Just a wee reminder, if you haven't already done so, get your raffle tickets for the prize draw that we're going to do about 9:30. Make your donations at ukraine.gamestalks.live or see Sean and Ruben on the door. Thank you very much. Every donation will go to a great cause. Thank you very much. So our next speaker, after me forgetting to bring his slides up, delighted to bring him on. He's been playing around with narrative in games for a number of years, doing game adaptations of things like 39 Steps and Beckett. He was the first designer in residence at the V&A Dundee. Very impressive. And he's just started something new with a number of co-founders called Stacking Chairs. So here to tell us a little bit more is Mr. Simon Meek.
Thank you. So I was about to say these slides are as new to me as they are to you guys, in as much as I'm not quite sure what the next one says, but I was going to start by talking a wee bit about myself, although Colin's just done a pretty good job. I suppose suffice to say that I trained as a civil engineer, realized I really didn't like civil engineering, but I really enjoyed reading All the President's Men, so I really wanted to be an investigative journalist. So I moved it down to London, spent 7 years there, just doing that actually, and really enjoying it. And then as my sort of partying went up the way, and I sort of realized that I probably need a slightly less intense job came down the way, I found a really great magazine called Televisual. And Televisual was the sort of the trade industry magazine for the screen industries. And that was around 2001 or 2. And what the great thing happened then is I really got excited about the convergence of media. And I really got excited about the idea that the skills which could be sort of, with skills which were apparent in film and television and theatre. I've got a bit of a theatre background as well I can talk about potentially if my slides that way veer. Could be brought into games. And I remember speaking to Jamie MacDonald at Sony at the time, and he was running the London studios, and he was like, yeah. And PlayStation's got that same vision. So I got really excited. And then when I met my wife-to-be and we realized that we were pregnant, well, she was pregnant, and I was sort of a supportive other half. She was from Glasgow, so we decided to move to Glasgow and then started my journey effectively into becoming a TV development producer and director, and then into games. So, and it was very much driven by this passion that I do and fundamentally believe that like video games have the potential to be the greatest form of storytelling. And I think it still is, in honesty, it's a potential which is still there. We've seen some great narrative games, but I still feel there's a little way to go. And I've been sort of banging this drum in various ways, and I've been trying to persuade people to give me money, and them saying, no, it's great, but you're sort of a little bit niche, so maybe the amount of money is this much. So I've had to think, what can I do with that much money? But I think we're at a point now where things are maybe changing. And my presentation is called The New Audience Opportunity, which is the one slide I do remember coming next. New audience opportunity. So the first thing is, yes, there's a new studio. So between 2013 and well, actually now I ran a company which was ostensibly me, called The Secret Experiment. And under that, I released various titles, including Beckett, which was happy to win the Scottish BAFTA for a few years back. But also as part of that venture, it led me into some very nice other places. Like I was a lead artist at the National Theatre of Scotland, which co-funded my design residency at the V&A. And all of these things just allowed me to sort of experiment in narrative, which is a sort of really blessed position to be in. You know, the idea to sort of like, for things to change, we need to experiment. And the problem with experimentation is either you either need very, very rich parents, or you need to find means to fund that experimentation. So I was blessed enough to sort of find my way through it. And also during that time, because I spent a lot of time sort of originating IP and also working in television and film, I ended up working with some really brilliant other video game studios, such as Future Lab in Brighton. So I wrote their Peaky Blinders game, and I've also sort of co-produced the original IP with them. And anyway, as part of that journey, I met a bunch of these people, such as Sean Mulvenna, who did a lot of the art on Beckett, Nick Gozem, who is an incredible audio designer who I met when I was the IP director for a company in Paris called Darewise, Colin Entwistle, who I believe is a key proponent of Rockstar's camera systems. He's been there. He was there for like 20 years. Then he went off and set up to build a Rocket Boy, Leslie Benzies, and some other stuff. So met all these great people who I just think incredibly talented. And also we were coming to the conclusion that we shared this similar vision that although we love games, our love for games was starting to erode because the content they were providing wasn't quite as good as the content that maybe we were finding on Netflix. I was waking up in the morning and going, I really want to play a game, but I think Ozark is probably scratching that itch more than I can find in the indie scene. But why is that? Because we love games and we want to play games. So this studio is effectively around trying to readdress that itch. You know, we are people who are coming together thinking we want to make games which are sort of packed with meaning, really sort of scratching that itch from a drama point of view. So we're creating third-person games which allow people to experience narratives from the inside out. Games gives a brilliant access to the world. So we're allowing people to get into the world, explore its opportunities, be distracted by the things which you weren't expecting, and sort of pull together a really interesting new experience. Anyway, I've realized I've spoke for 4 minutes and I've got all these things to go through. So interesting team. These are some of the stuff the games people on that team worked with. We're working with people from film and other aspects of the industry. But yeah, lots of indie titles, lots of the biggest AAA titles, an interesting clash. So there's an existing opportunity for narrative-driven games. We can see it in things like some of the success stories. Like Life is Strange is a pretty big success story. It sort of peaks out at about, what's really interesting is through the current market situation, there are people who love narrative-driven games, but after about 3 million, we start to like, I mean, that is a major success. I mean, Oxenfree has had 1 million sales up until that point where Games Pass came along, and suddenly they found they had 4 million downloads. Now that's interesting. So the narrative-driven market seems to be, you know, bolstered by this idea that give people a sort of subscription, and people are more willing to sort of try that. So that's quite interesting. So now we've got Games Pass, which says they've surpassed 25 million subscribers. So that's pretty cool. Why? Because it's allowing people to access the content they may not normally have found, but also maybe not normally have paid the money for, because you spend your money on other stuff. We've also seen the emergence of a new breed of publishers, and by this I mean people are coming in. There's more than the people I put on there, by the way. This is the extent of my time searching the internet to find logos to put on there. But the new breed of publishers are the people who are coming from a storytelling background, who are basically coming and going, we want to create content which is actually driven by the narrative, driven by like the experience being a content first thing. So we've got people like Skybound, who are obviously known for their comics, Walking Dead and whatnot. We've got Annapurna, who is obviously a film company first, trying the more sort of experimental side of narrative games. And we've got people like AMC, who's an American broadcasting network who you might know for things like Mad Men and stuff. So these people are starting to fund games. Have been funding for a while. The other thing we're seeing at the moment is this other emergence of the platforms. So whereas traditionally in games, obviously we're getting our content through Steam and PlayStation, Xbox, Games Pass and stuff like that, suddenly we're seeing the emergence of Netflix going, okay, we'll buy Night School. Oh, actually, we'll commission some games. And you sort of start to wonder, where are they going with that? Because at the moment they're saying it's a mobile proposition, but that isn't their end game. You know, they don't want to be a sort of a small mobile sort of games operation. Their end game is to sort of incorporate the stuff that they're creating into their platform. The end game is to make sure that when I'm looking for something to do at 6 in the morning because I've woken up and my brain's already firing, that when I think I'll watch Ozark, I might actually play the game which they're offering as well. So there's a sort of new market opportunity. And I think what's really interesting about this is the growth market here is atop of the existing narrative gamers. And what do I mean by that? Like, we know there are that sort of 3 million sort of base of like success if you can capture the narrative gamers. I can guarantee that the SVOD market, the subscription video on demand market, already holds those narrative lover gamers. But actually, rather than us sort of limiting ourselves to think the market is top there, if you start to think of the sort of proliferation and size of the SVOD market, we start to sort of get figures of hundreds of millions plus. You know, like, you know, the Squid Game audience is like, what, 170 million or something. So suddenly, if we think of a growth market of people who love narrative experiences, the SVOD market is actually incredibly interesting. And obviously, we always, you know, we hear time and time again that the video games market is the biggest sort of, you know, creative industry. And while that is true in terms of revenue, it's not true in terms of like audience, because, you know, we estimate 2.8 billion gamers, but there are 5.4 billion TV viewers. So in terms of pure reach, games isn't the biggest. Also, I think if you dig down into that, like, games is bigger than film, is bigger than television. But if you add film and television together and think of it in a sort of Disney Plus model, I think you'll find that the markets aren't as sort of clearly delineated as that. The other interesting thing about the SVOD folk is there is a clear desire for experimental and interactive narrative already. And okay, this might be 1991 sort of era, 1991 era experiences from a gameplay point of view, you know, typical branch of narratives and stuff. But actually, it's the start of their journey. And actually, the people who are watching dramas en masse are interested. So this is an opportunity. So there's a sort of, what I would say, a new AAA experience. The first one is making content that's available. Breaking down the barriers in as much as you've got a subscription, so it's there, it's part of your menu. It's streaming, therefore you don't need the hardware at the bottom. So instantly you've broken down those two hurdles. You're opening up a market by saying it's on the list, press X and play. So this is a cloud gaming thing. The next one is it's accessible. If we're looking at a growth market, what we don't want to do is assume that they're all sort of high skill-based gamers. They don't want 17 buttons in their hands. We need to rethink the way the content is played to make it accessible to the growth market. We also need to think about something which is appealing. Now, the video games market at the moment in narrative has a sort of a focus largely on young adult fiction type stuff. What we need to do is be a little bit bolder. We need to be looking at things like Magnolia, Requiem for a Dream, Trainspotting, Ozark, things which like actually, you know, really have a punch and actually start to raise our sort of ambitions as a storytelling community within games so we can compete with these guys. Because the reality is that if we want to present what is ostensibly a new form of storytelling, we don't have to just be as good as the competition. If I wake up in the morning, I need to make sure that there is something comparable which is as good, but it also needs to be sort of different and inspiring. It needs to present itself as something which is going to present a unique form of storytelling, which is going to take me in somewhere different. It needs to be for something of all play skill levels. And also, most importantly, it needs to be a content-first proposition. I've worked on far too many games where the narrative is the wallpaper for the things to do in the game. But I think we need to get to a mindset that if we're trying to address an audience who are lovers of content, our games need to be delivered with a content-first proposition. People want to play our games for the content they contain. Now, that doesn't mean we can't create great game mechanics and cool systems and amazing sort of game feel and gameplay, but we need to like make sure that we're sort of ultimately content-first. And I have one last slide. These are some really good examples of experimentation in theatre, books, film, and graphic novels, which I haven't got time to talk about, but I can do if you grab me afterwards. But the thing which I really love is this gleeful reunion, because you sort of think, who were those people who are tuning into Bandersnatch and stuff? And like, who are these people who are like really wanting this interactive content on the SVOD platforms? Why aren't they playing games? Well, I'd bet my bottom dollar it's one, disenfranchised gamers. It's these people who starting to feel like I was saying before, like, oh, I'm actually losing a bit of love with games because the sort of content I want, the sort of experiences I want in my very time-short days where every minute's meaningful, it's actually been more delivered by this growth in SVOD than what it is in games. Now, I would probably say if I wasn't working in the games industry, I would be one of those people. And I'm sort of feel it at the moment. You know, I want to love games tons. I play a lot of games, but I really want not to become the disenfranchised gamer. And then the other thing which ties back to this sort of the Sony conversation is I remember right back in the day, PlayStation saying to me, the sleeping giant is the lapsed gamers. The sleeping giant are those people who played games in the 80s and early 90s, the CD-ROM era people who bought Myst in their millions. These people who were the actually first tranche of disenfranchised gamers, they sort of feel like, you know, they may be 60 and 70 now. And whereas I don't have much time to play games because I've got 3 kids and billions of other things going on in my life, my dad, who's 70, who loves games but doesn't have the content, has all the time in the world and he has money to spend. So I sort of think there's a really interesting audience opportunity here, and that is my rambling array of slides. So thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Simon. Okay, our next speaker is someone that I thought was fascinating that we were able to get them along, because we're all interested in space, I think, mostly, and we're all interested in how we get our games funded. So our next speaker can tell us a little about how to combine those two things. Here from the European Space Agency is the Regional Ambassador for Scotland, Ken Gordon.
Good evening. Is it evening? No. Hello, Glasgow. Louder. Dundee was louder. Hello, Glasgow. Anyway, sorry. Thank you for doing that. You just made me very happy. Hi, my name is Ken Gordon. I'm the ESA Business Ambassador for Scotland, Northern Ireland, and beyond. Lovely to meet you. I work for European Space Agency. I've been working for them for a couple of years now. If there's a great example of joining an industry that's really fascinating late in life, I am it. And also that brilliant discussion around, I'm wondering, I think I might be a lapsed gamer. This is going to age me. Okay, so the first game I ever played was it was text only. There were goblins, there were dungeons. It was on a 5.5-inch floppy disk. Yeah, I'm that old. I am so old. So good to be here. Thank you very much for inviting me, Colin. This is really interesting. So what is the European Space Agency about? Well, we are the largest business space network in the world. We support European startups. We help SMEs to develop their business, mainly through funding. And I've used the F word, yes, funding. And we are here to support businesses that do interesting things with space technology. We do all the cool stuff as well. We've got all sorts of things around space debris. We've got new rockets and things. There's interestingly a Mars rover that is on top of a rocket right now in Russia. That's not going to be launched this year, I don't think. However, we do lots and lots of different things. The thing that I'm going to talk about today is the stuff on the extreme right-hand side, which is the application of space. Okay, so the application of space technology in its broadest sense. We've all paid for that technology through our taxes. The UK is the 4th biggest funder of European Space Agency, and it's all Brexit proof. It's going to, and that will continue. The European Space Agency, I think, has 22 different member states, including Canada. And I was doing an event the other day, and someone said, "Why Canada?" And I thought, why is someone so annoyed by Canada? You know. So anyway, right. So I mentioned the F word, funding. For your project to be fundable, it has to solve a problem, it has to use space tech, and there has to be a marketplace that's available, that's obvious, or at least defined, okay? And in the broadest sense, that means projects across all different sectors, and we fund what you would call, or we might call serious games, okay? Or games with purpose, games that solve problems, games that perhaps help people in their daily lives, and I'll give you some examples at the end. So your project has to be, has a market demand. It's not about project, it's always about, is there a way of it being commercialized? Is there a way can go to the marketplace? It could equally be given away as a game, but someone has to buy it to give it away, okay? And you have to use a space technology. I'll outline, there's a wee list on a slide later. Here's the slide. What's space technology? Well, space technology is mainly stuff from satellites, mainly. So we've got things like space weather. Now, somebody from Dundee actually asked me this question, what's space weather? And that's a good point, because it's either the weather viewed from space or the weather in space. We cover both of these things. Both of them are quite important. Earth observation, that slide there, ding, ding, that's Glasgow. You're just so good. This is great. 25th of August, 2021, there were no clouds over Glasgow. Yay. So, yeah, so basically what our projects fund is if you use any of those space technologies on the extreme right-hand side, left-hand side, and usually they're mixed with other things, so 5G or on-the-ground data or other data sets, then apply them to any of these sectors here, education, energy, fintech, environment, whatever. You will be in the right box or the right area to be funded. And I'm here to help you understand the process and talk about your projects and help you apply, which is something that's a bit unusual. ESA helps you apply for their funding. This slide you will get later. You read the detail later. There's a bit of wordy stuff here. This is the most popular application route. It's called Open Call. There are no deadlines. Every Thursday, applicants get assessed, and then they get into the process if they are acceptable. Today, I had one client going in with a VR game that involves educating people on the environment, and I've been so busy I haven't checked to see if she's got through to the next stage. But I will when I leave here and get back home. Yeah, so you can get 50% match funding. You can get up to €250,000 euros. Sorry, your project total value should be €250,000 max for a feasibility study. And for demonstration projects, you could probably get a beyond €2 million total project value if you want. Bearing in mind, you have to find the other 50%. The other 50% can be made up of anything except other public money. Okay, so it can be cash, it can be profits, it can be in kind, it can be all sorts of different things. And ESA is not interested in taking any IP. No IP. And you get to use our branding, which is like a logo and lots of other things. You also get invited to our ESA only investment events and networking events, because people who get these projects to get in an inner circle of love. The other kind of funding we do is we do Kickstarts, which are kind of new in the UK. UK didn't support them. You get 75% funded. They open and close really quickly. This is the only one that's running right now, and you only get up to €60,000 maximum. And then we have competitions. The list is there. Check it later. The good news is that if you apply for it, if you think, oh, that competition looks great, but it's going to close too quickly, you can still apply to Open Call with any of the topics there. So you can always get 2 applications done. Now you're thinking, well, you know, applications, jings. I hate writing applications, don't we all? So here's the good news. The application for this process is fairly simple. The gateway in there. And the website you should all pay attention to, if you wish, is that business.esa.int. Everything is there. But the main thing at the end is my contact details, and we can talk about that. So the application process starts with a questionnaire. Oh no, yes, it's a questionnaire, but it's only 8 pages, and you only have to fill out 7 of them. Yes, 7 pages. Who's not going to fill out 7 pages? I know. The problem is, you've got to fill them out properly. You've got to demonstrate a project, your team. You've got to put a little bit about your work plan. So you've got to think it through, put it in your 7 pages. That gets submitted online, and every Thursday, the applications are reviewed. Okay, so I'm here to help you, advise you on that. I can review different people's drafts. I've done that today for 2 different companies applying for totally different things. And then you go into the process, they evaluate it. What's missing from this slide is The next thing is you get invited to pitch. So the first stage is 7 pages. No or yes. No, they'll tell you why. Yes, please come and talk to us. A 20-minute pitch, which I can help you prepare for. And then the outcome of that pitch is you will be either thank you very much, but no thanks, or you'll be invited to write an outline proposal and then a full proposal. Good news. I'm helping you all the way up to the pitch. At the pitch point, you'll get a technical officer from ESA. They will be appointed and they will help you all through the other parts of the application process. Now, I've worked in framework program, Horizon 2020, Innovate UK funding. We help you all the way through. I think this is kind of unique. And you remember, those 7 pages are your starting point. Here's an example of one that was funded. Now, I got extra data for this. Have we got a timer running, Colin? Oh God. Okay, thank you. I was just thinking, I've got free time. Ludotrek is a game that we funded, and it's using the kind of Pokemon Go approach that you can apply for education and entertainment purposes. Check it out on the web link down the bottom. You're going to get all these things. It uses GNSS. Most of our applications and most of our games are serious games, and they use location data. So if you know how to use that, you've got an application in there that uses that could be fundable. Another one is Vedus, which uses AR and VR. The one this morning was VR and AR, which is really interesting. And this one is all about, let me see, it's all about artifacts and geology and archaeological sites. Quite a lot of our applications are tourist related, remembering this can be gamified tourism experiences. Check that one out. Again, it's using GNSS and a few other bits and pieces. It's very, very, very interesting project. Finally, Kickstart. This is a Kickstart and called EcoPlayer, and it's about schools and primary schools and an additional audience, all that stuff there. Didactic knowledge, and this is the third night I've never looked up what didactic means. What does didactic mean? Anybody? How you teach. Thank you very much. From France. Thank you very much. It took someone from France to tell me. So yeah, check these out. So this is Glasgow on that lovely day. This is free information from the this afternoon or yesterday afternoon. This is the foliage around Glasgow. The red denotes don't. The red, do you know? Oh, right. The red shows good quality foliage. Okay, and this is how wet Glasgow is. Blue is wet. Red is not wet. You can see some bits and pieces. Yesterday in Dundee, Dundee was really wet compared to Glasgow. You can get all this information for free. Stop me and buy one. Come and talk to me about how to get this for free. Basically, most of the information is free. These are my contact details. Please get in touch. Tomorrow, I want lots of LinkedIn invitations. I've got so many more I don't have many friends. I don't have many friends. Thank you. Let's just talk. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ken. Okay, let me just queue up slides for our next speaker. So our next speaker is from a publisher called Focus Entertainment, who I've known of for decades, it feels like, but I hadn't realized just how many hit games they've been involved in. They've been involved in Farming Simulator and Mud Runner and Snow Runner, and then you look at the games they've released recently or coming up. They've got things like Alien Fireteam, they've got World War Z, they've got a Plague Tale Requiem, an amazing selection of games. So coming over especially from France to speak to us all tonight, please give a very warm welcome to Cecile Flechon from Focus Entertainment.
Hi. There's plenty of room on the front seat, on the front row. Sorry. So tonight we are going to see how to prepare before getting in touch with the publisher. And the aim of this is to make the better out of this blossoming relationship. Because what we love are long-lasting love stories, healthy love stories, sustainable love stories. So hence this way too long and probably super weird grammatically title. Yeah, sorry. So, but right now you might be wondering who the hell am I? So here you should have my Twitter handle. Oh, actually, I have the slides here. It's great. So you have my Twitter handle in case you want to get in touch, either to pitch me or to chit chat about the industry. It actually stands for my pen name as a journalist. That was Maria Kalash, because I'm a former video games journalist. I started with a column about flash games and weird gaming oddities, and I ended up doing investigative work, mostly about the working culture in the industry, which has room for improvement. And I left after 8 years, and for a bit I worked with several French indie game studios on the narrative design side of the games, which I really loved. But the thing is, I'm a terrible freelancer, so I had to find something else to do. And about a year ago, I joined Focus. So we are a French publisher based in Paris, has existed for 25 years. And so now I'm the publishing coordinator there, so part of the evaluating team. So basically the core of my job is maintaining a huge dashboard of hundreds of projects and make sure we keep on track with them. So disclaimer, most of the developers in this room probably have actually more experience with publisher than I do. So as you know, publishers are a diverse bunch. We have different ambitions, different budgets, different styles, so etc. And so you're more than welcome in taking everything I'm going to say tonight with a pinch of salt. So as a former journalist, I like questions and I like answers. There's nothing much on these slides. It's basically just, to pretend I've made slides. So here I'm offering just a little checklist for you to know where you stand and to make the communication easier when you're trying to approach a publisher. So we're starting with the where. Where do you stand as a team, as a studio? Ian actually explained this wonderfully in his Get Your House in Order slide. So I'm not going to repeat everything he said in a bad English with a terrible accent. Long story short, a good relationship with the publisher starts with you knowing who you are. It's like Greek philosophy. You need to know yourself, what you want to do, what are your priorities, your goals, and how you intend to get there. And you need to see within this scheme where you need help from a publisher and probably what you would expect from us. So on to the what. What do you need from us? So usually the most common answer is money, and that's perfectly fine. The second reason mentioned is usually marketing, and that's also fine. And Ian actually really did talk wonderfully about it as well. Excellent talk, Ian, by the way. But there are many more things. At Focus, there are about 200 employees. All of them are there to help you turn your great project into a great game. One of the things that I think is probably underused by developers is the feedbacks we can give. Even when we don't work together, we give feedbacks. I think in my team, at least 2/3 of our time is devoted to projects with whom we won't ever work, but we do our best to give you our insights. Sometimes you will decide it's useless, but sometimes it's actually useful. So make advantage of it. And we also come with a wide array of services. So many of them were also mentioned by Ian. That includes distribution, QA, certification, submissions, press relation. We can help you porting your game. We can help with release management. So in this wide range of services, which would be relevant to your project, which wouldn't. Once you know what you need from us, you may start thinking about who. First, who has published similar games? This is pretty easy to answer, as you usually have a very good knowledge of the market, of the game that are already out that share similarity with yours. So it can be genre-wise. I will struggle with what it's genre. So genre-wise, obviously, but art direction, overall budget, the message, the platforms, the audience you are targeting. It's all very useful entry points for you to select a few publishers. So this way you will get a first shortlist. And that leads us to the second who. Who has provided the kind of support that you would expect? So some studios, for instance, especially in their early years, they like to have some guidance. Some teams prefer to be perfectly free, and there is no wrong or right answer. It's up to you. But it's a bit trickier to know who actually provide that kind of services. So here you need to be your own little investigative journalist. So reach out to several studios. I mean, you all know each other. If you don't, well, it's a perfect way to get in touch and ask them what went well, what went wrong. Have they worked together on only one project, on several projects? Why? So I personally don't believe in one size fits all, be it in clothes or in publishers. There is no ultimate publisher that would stand above all others. What matters is that you find the right publisher for you. So, and to decide who would be the best fit, you are going to need information. So don't be shy. Gather this information in every possible and legal mean. So getting to understand how the relationship worked with others will help you decide who would be the right potential partners for you. And once you've done that, you will be clear on the why you are contacting Focus, for instance, or Raw Fury or Greenman Gaming instead of somebody else. What their strengths are, what you could expect from them, but also it helps you understand why you would be an asset for them, and it should empower you in your talk with it. And now we're getting into the action. So when is the best time to ping us? The short answer is there is no answer. It can be any time, as long as you are comfortable showing something. For us at Focus, we don't commit without a playable version. So depending on the kind of game, it can be a very early gray box proto. It doesn't matter, as long as it proves the intent of the game. Now to the how. So the tool that you have to launch a conversation are the pitch deck. I'm not going to talk about it because a bit later, Garnett from Raw Fury is going to walk you through this very difficult exercise. Just listen to whatever he says is brilliant. Then the playable version, I already mentioned it. And then once our interest in the project has been confirmed by the playable version, congrats. We usually ask for a few documents, so have them ready if you want things to move swiftly. That is a milestone roadmap, a budget, and a staffing plan. And the idea here is to check that this very interesting project makes sense production-wise, and that the team is going to be able to deliver it. So here, this is the main point of this talk, so you can forget everything I said before, forget everything I will say after, but this, don't forget, please do not underestimate your budgets, and do not shorten your milestones. We want you to be able to deliver your vision. And for you to make the best game, you need to feel good about it, and you need to go to work happy and relaxed. And of course, there are going to be issues during development. Creation is like an emotional roller coaster. We all know that. Life is not a quiet, long river. We all know that as well. So your developers are going to need days off, sick leave. So you need to plan contingencies. They need to be able, to focus on the game. and not worrying about making rent or being stressed out because they are missing out on life because they have to crunch. Okay, so, and obviously all this hard work need to be paid. So you plan fair salaries for everyone, and you include everything you have spent before contacting us in the budget of the game. And you also need to plan us, or I'm late, sorry, Colin. So you need to make sure that for this relationship to happen, you have time for us within your milestone roadmap. We are going to ask you for many documents. We are going to send you to PAX, to GDC. This is time consuming. Plan us. And very last point, and then I'm off. Ask questions. So if you've followed this little checklist I told you about, you will have many, many questions. Ask them. They can be very practical questions. They can be very philosophical questions. But what you want ultimately is to make sure that your vision for the game, your vision of your work is shared with the publisher and that you are actually speaking the same language. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Cecile. So we're going to take another short break now. But in this break, come and chat to all of our speakers in that block. So that was Simon from Stacking Chairs, Ken from the European Space Agency, and Cecile from Focus Entertainment. They're going to be in the little alcove there for the next half an hour. So go and grab them. If you have ordered food, food is now served up at the back. Sean and Ruben will check you in for those that have ordered food. And we will be back in about 20 minutes for our next set of speakers. Thank you. Okay, we will kick off on our next batch of speakers. Just a wee reminder, if you haven't already bought a raffle ticket, it's all in a great cause. We're raising money for the Ukrainian Red Cross. So do jump on to ukraine.gamestalks.live and get a ticket. You'll get one ticket for every £5 that has been donated. So do jump on. And if you want to do it just in cash, please see Sean and Ruben at the door where you checked in. Thanks. Okay. If we can get a bit of hush, please. Shh. Thank you very much. We will crack on because we have got a ton more great speakers we need to fit in. So next up, we are jumping up to Dundee, and it's great to have one of the studios there traveling around. They came to Edinburgh, obviously in Dundee last night, and it's great to have them down here in Glasgow. This is a team I've admired since one of their first games about 5 years ago, which was the brilliant VR title, Honeypot Espionage. Joining us today is their MD, Gary McCartan.
Hi everyone. This is the first night where I can see everyone, so it's a bit weird. I don't know where to look. It was completely pitch black in the other ones. But yes, it's great to be here. You know, really cool to be up here with other greats like, you know, Simon, Meek. We've got, no worries, Simon. And of course, Imre and Rami coming up later on. But some of you might know me, or some of you might recognize me as well, because yes. Oh, this is the old one, Colin. Oh, you spoiled the joke. Oh, no. It's not. I've just got it in the wrong order. I forgot which way I was doing it round, because yes, I was on Pointless. And that was pretty pointless because I got it wrong there as well. But yes, so this talk is all about the opposite side of survivorship bias. This is looking at some of the things that really caused us strife during our years as an indie studio. Like, we started 5 years ago straight out of university, and it's been tough, and somehow we're still around. So this is meant to be a 40-minute talk, done in 10 minutes. So I'm just going to get started. The first point, the first headache is taking on projects that don't match your vision. And I'll get to that in a bit about why that's caused us issues. But let's have a look at what our vision actually is. Not that. So we think about our long-term vision. What's our mission statement? And for us, it's to be able to fund our own IP and to work on really cool work for hire projects. I'm pretty sure that's what a lot of people here want to do as well. And that's what we love doing. And if we break that down further, we've got our yearly vision. And, now in our 5th year, we're finally working on our own IP. Our yearly vision is to start building relationships with publishers. And of course, everyone has the same monthly vision, which is to pay people. If you don't hit the monthly vision, you won't hit the yearly vision, and you won't hit your long-term vision. And if you look at that within our condensed journey, one of the projects that we finished off recently was helping the guys at Oddworld port Soulstorm to the PlayStation 5 and to Xbox. And reflecting, it only took us 5 projects to get to a stage where we could pitch for Oddworld Soulstorm. We had Hypothalamus Hunt, which was done with St. Andrews University, one of our first games that gave us a little bit of money. Driving Vision was a VR experience, which allowed us to fund the studio. Dish Life was our first proper game that we made with Cambridge University. Then we did a lot of co-dev with studios like Tag and Hyperluminal. And that was great because we got to learn from their experience while they paid us at the same time. And so it was a win-win for us. And I think they won because we were working for them. And then doing stuff like Pocket Mortys give us loads of credibility. And that got us to a stage where we could finally pitch for stuff like Oddworld Soulstorm. Those 5 projects. But of course, it wasn't 5 projects. It was 35 projects. 35 projects over the last 5 years. So it's been you can imagine the production nightmare and the stress. And a lot of these came in our first 2 years. And we essentially started off as freelancers working within the company and bringing stuff in through the company. And if you look back at that, those 5 projects, like think of the 35. Did we have to do them all? No. Did all 35 of those get us to the stage where we could hit our vision of being able to work on really cool projects like Oddworld Soulstorm? Definitely not. Did it cause me a lot of stress? Yes. So try and just remember that when you're taking on those type of projects, think about your long-term vision and think about where you want the company to go. This next point, I can't talk about because I don't have a lot of time, but you need to learn to say no, like whether that's to projects, to clients, some of their demands. So just instead of talking about it, we'll do a little practice really quickly. Stephen, can you go buy me a drink afterwards, please? No. Okay. Thank you. I think you've been listening. It's good. Okay. Now I feel attacked. Maybe I should have said no to Stephen to ask him to help me out there. And look, there's a picture of you too. I was being nice to you. But one of the things that we thought about, one of the things that really we found value, especially over the last 2 years, was this idea of consultants. And we definitely didn't get them on board soon enough. And if we think about consultants versus a mentor is someone who is free and consultant is paid. And mentors are great. There's loads of people that want to help. Like we love helping people. And we've got such great community here in Scotland that loves to come together. Pardon me. But the problem with mentors is they might not have enough time for you. They only really get a snapshot of what you do. So they might have a different vision to what your company vision actually is. So they project their story onto you instead of helping you tell your own story. And you do get a lot of unsolicited advice. And if you want some bad advice, come talk to me afterwards as well. But consultants are great because consultants work for you. And so what that means is that they will do work for you. So you can take your bundle of stress and just give it to them and be like, here you go, there's my stress. You do that and I don't have to worry about it anymore. And eventually they pay for it themselves, either through helping you save money by refining your processes or helping you to find funding or pots of funding. And so it's a win-win. When they're saving you money or making you money, you're going to pay them more money to keep doing it. But with consultants, they have to be right for your company vision. They have to match and understand exactly what you want to do. So yes, if you're an indie studio and you can afford consultants, get consultants on sooner because it will help you grow quicker. The next headache is one of the things that we thought that we had down to a T when we first started out, which was understanding what the client wants. When we started out, we knew what statements of work were. We had things religiously written down when we were pitching for projects, and this was this is Poppy Scotland. It's a VR experience, a VR museum experience that we did with the Royal Legion. And you could go into it and explore the Lady Hague factory, find out about a little bit about how they make the poppies there. And it was great. It was amazing. It was a really short project meant to be for PC VR. And because it was meant to be for PC, we didn't think about optimization because of the short time. We were just like, textures, it doesn't matter how many materials there are, just throw them in, it'll be fine. It worked. We knew exactly what hardware was going to be on it. The client understood that, and it was great. And it all worked out really well. Like when they came to the end of it, they were like, Gary, this is amazing. This is a really great PC VR experience. This is fantastic. Can we get it to run on the Oculus Go? And I just went, fuck. I love this one because you can just see the range of emotion in my face. I get destroyed on national television. But so we tried forever to try and fix this. So I say forever, 2 weeks. But it was using tools to try and optimize those meshes, optimize the materials, optimize the textures, but none of it would work. Just because it was so unoptimized, it just ended up a complete blurry mess trying to do it that way. And this is the best thing that we've ever done as a company. And I don't know how the idea came to us, but what we did to fix the problem was we rendered, because it was, we took 360-degree snapshots of each eye, of where each eye would be. And I wrote a shader that would render an image to each eye. So what that meant was that we would have a 360-degree photosphere, but because you had two different images in each eye, it essentially gave the illusion of depth. And then all we did was just stick a table in the middle of it, and it worked, and it was great. And the client didn't notice anything else. And when they were playing it, they were like, this is fantastic. Gary, how did you do this? And I was like, don't ask. But it was a big problem, thinking about that. When we took on that project, we knew what the client wanted. We understood what the client wanted, but we didn't understand what their future goals were. And if we had thought about that a little bit better, we could have done stuff differently. Cash flow is always a huge problem for indie studios, and especially ones that are coming straight out of university. And if you're in that similar position, I'm going to give you the best bit of advice, which will help you start to find money, and that is to ask for help. If you ask for help, it's just like networking, you're telling people, hey, we're here, we're this company, we've got this talented team, help us, and that works in two ways, because you're raising your profile about them, you're raising your profile with them, you're getting them to understand who you are and what you do, but at the same time, you also go in the back of their mind. So even us at our stage, even though we're still quite small, there's projects that we have to turn away, either because they're too small for us or we don't have capacity. And, with those companies in the back of our mind, it's like, hey, great, these guys can help. And I don't have much time left to talk about these last 2 points, but I'll go over them really quickly. There's a lot of difference between being a developer and a business owner, It's loads of fun working on projects, but it gets to a stage where you're working on projects, trying to run a business, working on projects, trying to run a business. And you really need someone just to be up there to steady the ship. In fact, to sum up these last 2 points, I could just cry for the last 30 seconds. And it's really easy to say, learn to deal with stress, but I think the better thing to do is learn to recognize stress and how it affects you. Understand it, understand where it comes from, and understand when it's happening, because it will have a big impact on you, but more importantly, it'll have a big impact on your team. And yes, thank you for listening to me. Come chat to me afterwards, and thank you guys.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Gary. So next up, we have a speaker who has also traveled up from down south to see us. He is someone that runs his own marketing consultancy by day and moonlights as a scout for the publisher Merge Games at night, or sometimes it's the other way around. I always get confused. Either way, he's a man worth listening to. So please welcome of HeyStephenHey. It is Mr. Stephen Hey.
Thank you, Colin. That sounds like the worst Batman film ever, doesn't it? kind of scout by night. Anyway. So yeah, so this is me. Hey Stephen. Hey, where's the timer, Colin? We just go. In front of me. I'm just an idiot. Oh right, right, okay. It's just flashing. But it's okay. I'll carry on. That means I've got about 3 hours, so it's okay. I'm good. Okay, so this is where fame costs, and this is where you start paying, kids. I don't know where that came from. I think, and the unwarranted aggression towards Gary. And I think it's because I've had a sniff of the barmaid's apron. Sorry. And I haven't even had a sniff. Literally, I've had about that much of a drink. And that's how pathetic I am at drinking. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about that. So this is me. This is a bit punk, this presentation. I went, whoa, cool. And, to kind of connect with the youth. So I'll be spitting some truths at my fam out there. So, 52, but I can connect. So this is when I used to be someone. So I used to work, I started in games in last century and I came out of the looms and I worked for lots of bigger companies. I ended up working at an EA studio called Chilingo. EA closed the studio. Maybe they just pretended to close it and it's not, and actually it's open, but they pretended to close it. Everyone went home and I went to freelance land and became HeyStephenHey. Since then, for the past 5 years, I've worked on various projects with various companies like these people. And I do 3 things really in my kind of pretend made up jigsaw of a career. Marketing, I still do marketing. It's the core of what I do. Cut me in half and I'll just bleed. So don't do it. But I do marketing and, I love it. I kind of get sadly excited about branding and stuff. Scouting, I do. I've got I've got loads of badges. See my my coat at home. I've got badges all up every arm. Scouting, biz dev, finding games for a indie publisher called Merge Games. And educating, just because I'm old and I can essentially condense nearly 30 years of a games career into 3 PowerPoints. I get to do educating. So yeah, it's good. And I love it. So today I'm going to talk about 5 pre-production marketing essentials in the form of picture quiz round. Hey! This is better than last night's crowd. I can't remember where we were last night. I don't know. Anyway, so picture quiz round. So picture quiz number 1. This is always a cold start, I call this one, because nobody usually says anything. So what we've got an identity card, perhaps, of someone. It looks like a killer. I didn't search for killer's identity card. And what's happening here in black and white on the other side? A race, or another word for race? Competition? Thanks, people who've been here for 3 nights already. I'm not saying out. Identify the competition. This is really important to benchmark what you. This is a serious bit now. You're laughing. Jesus. I forgot. Yeah, Dundee were better. So who are you making the game for? You need to work out really. I don't remember this appearing the other day. Anyway, you need to find out. You need to work out what game you're making, what other similar games are out there in the market, and then rate them, because all this information is out there. Steam is an amazing big source of data and information on all of your competition, and there's tools like GameCrunch.com. Which allows you to, just some clever stuff with Steam, and tells you, you can kind of search by tags, you can search by product, and it will tell you which people have reviewed the same products, essentially. So if you're looking at something like Goat Simulator, it will tell you that those people also bought Surgeon Simulator, obviously, and other games like Postal 2 and the Stanley Parable. Some of them will be kind of out there, but what you're getting is, these people have bought them because they've reviewed them. So it's a handy piece of data to have. Come on. What kind of boat is this? Another word for I had Trawler then, I think. What's in the what, Steam? And what does this guy do? Troll Steam for reviews. So if you're looking at games and you're doing your benchmarking, you look at the descriptions. This is what the publishers and the developers think they've made, and they want you to think of their game. So this is what they intend. But the reviews is where you'll find the truth, and just scrape all the reviews, manually go through them, and you'll start seeing those patterns pretty clearly. One exercise I did for this was one of the games I was looking at was Stardew Valley, and I looked at loads of reviews, and nobody hates Stardew Valley. Everyone loves it. Somebody called it, the only negative I found was somebody called it pixely. Stardew Valley, Stardew flipping Valley. Okay, here you go. Strike through on the S there. What's he saying? This chap. Hey, he's a player. We know he's a player. Oh, but we're taking it out, so he's not a player. He's a player. So no. Yes, you're a player. Big companies like EA and Ubisoft and all those big guys you may have heard of, they will have segmentations of gamers. What that means is they've just identified different types of gamers and the reason why they play games. We don't have that because we're indies. Luckily, this company called Quantic Foundry give you their segments, and they're pretty good, actually. Quantic Foundry do a lot of work for the big companies anyway. If you go on their website, you can find this stuff. You can find information about it. And the important things here are is the row that says top mot, which means top motivation. And they're the reasons people play games. If you can work out who your audience is and why they're playing games, you can kind of build a feature set around that. You can build a marketing campaign around that. I did it. This is what happened. And then it went like that. And then this alarm went off and the police came in. It was excellent. So much fun. My new colleagues in the Methven. This is, we can just say any order. Go on. Say what you see. Gary, you've been on that program on catchphrase. So Homer is thinking. This thing in the middle is a piece of unashamed marketing. Yes. And at the end, we've got a funnel. Think marketing funnel. This is a marketing funnel. This is what they teach at marketing school. So you have to build a funnel, and it works for if you're doing a new brand of Jaffa cakes or you're marketing a game. This is really true because not everybody likes Jaffa cakes, but you need to tell everybody about them. And then that's okay because some of those people will drop off because I'm not interested in Jaffa cakes actually, but a few people still are, so they're in there. And then we get down to consideration. So at every stage, you're siphoning it off consumers a bit at a time until you get to the bottom. And this is where we get purchasers and we get ambassadors and we get people who become big fans of your brand. They'll go on your Discord. They'll talk about it to their friends. And these are the things that you can do from a games point of view over on the left. Okay. This is the last one now. And probably the worst. Even I don't get. I'm just looking at this mystified. Need? Nice. Need is good. Need is better than the answer. What's this thing you put on your head and see things that aren't there? Devilment, virtual devilment. It should be called virtual devilment for the use of larrikins. But it's not virtual reality. It's reality. So need reality. Maths, maybe. Okay, do real maths. Need real maths. That's what. Oh no, I told you. I was getting tired at that point. Come on. At this point in Edinburgh, I got carried out the room on people's hands, and the door shut behind me, and this piece of wood went against the thing, and that was. I cried for a little bit. So do some maths. I mean, you don't need to be exact. Doing forecasts is, you know, that is really the job of the publisher. But knowing kind of being realistic about what you're asking for and knowing what other games could possibly get. If you go to the game discovery blog that Simon Cowlis does, he's a great he's a better marketer than I am. He can tell you there's different ways that you can estimate game sales. You know, they're not brilliant, but it just, I think if you're going into a pitch, it does help that. And it also helps you to scale a project as well, just to give you an idea. So I think that's really important to have. This is me. You can get me in a QR code if you want to do that. And then I don't know why this transition takes forever, but there you go. And this is available on the merch stand at the back. Ethan selling them is taking 10%. Of every sale, which so far on this tour has been nothing. Then there's some, just jot them down, quick. There's some links. If you want these links, if you want this deck, you can come and find me at the back. And I think there's other distribution methods as well. And that's me. So there you go. Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is someone else that's flown in especially to see everyone here. He has flown in especially from Sweden, from a publisher called Raw Fury that many of you will know from...
I almost got you.
Many of you will know from one of their early hits, Cathy Rain, and more recently are responsible for publishing things like the award-winning Backbone and the beautiful Sable. So here from Raw Fury is their scout/producer, as I've taken to calling him, Mr. Garnett Lee.
Thank you very much. Just to be clear, there is no one at Raw Fury who is responsible in the least. We are not responsible people. I think that's why we're making indie games. Oh, here's the thing, the clicker. Yes, I'm Garnett Lee, as aforementioned. I'm a scout. I do other things. I've done a lot of other things. That's another talk. This talk is about how to get through the blank page, but not, you're all game developers who've been doing game development, how to get through the blank page of getting ready to do business with your game. And this has got to be, it kind of feels like a dry talk the last 2 nights, so I'm going to kind of blast through stuff and then do questions, because I watched Rami do questions, and it seems like the best stuff comes out of questions. And it's really more interesting than looking at a dry deck. So what are we going to talk about? Pitches, productions, and business. Oh my. Raw Fury is very developer oriented, and on our website you'll find our resources. We have a Dropbox that has all kinds of really boring facts and figures and sheets for you to figure out how your game is going to perform. It's the same stuff we use. The reason we're not going to go through it here is because it's like the stuff that you saw in classroom and you're like, whoa, what happened? There's also our agreement there, and if you haven't tuned into YouTube lately and watched the multi-series lawyer in-depth assessment of the Raw Fury publishing agreement, well, you're missing out on some good times. No, it's really useful if you're going to think about getting into an agreement. We put that up there intentionally. All of our agreements are the same. We don't really do a lot of red lines because we want to make sure that we're transparent and no developer feels like they're getting a different treatment. So it's just sort of it's the easiest way. You know, I learned a long time ago, the easiest way to always make sure that you say the right thing is to never even tell a white lie, because you don't ever have to worry about what you said before, right? So this is kind of our policy on that, which brings me to the thing that is the most challenging piece for indie developers, which is building your pitch deck. And so this gets really dense. And so instead of getting down into the nitty gritty, I want to start off and just sort of go through some of the key pieces. And then we'll talk about I'll get your questions and we can just talk about how to build a good pitch. The pitch really wants to be almost like a term paper was the way I described it last night, or like a big college paper, right? You want to hit up front with your thesis. You want to get across what it is you're trying to communicate to us as the publishers, your vision, like what it's going to be. But you also need to get across a couple of other things in that first page, and that is who it is that's making the thing. And the second one is don't hesitate to ask for the money. We know why we know why you're applying to a publisher, why you're looking to be published. Rami's going to talk about this later. It's called de-risking yourself. It's making yourself able to build a game, enjoy your creative opportunity, and not feel like, where is my next chicken finger going to come from? I mean, that's not fun. You cannot build a game well in that environment. And so you should never be shy about asking about the money. And I'll let Rami make that point even better for me later. So the other thing that you're going to want to do up front is take your game design doc and bring it into a vision, bring it into a really clearly defined vision. And that's really tough, right? Because I think that the process of building game designs oftentimes is additive for a long time. You know, you're thinking about, I had this idea, and you know, the idea genesis is someplace in a creative space, but then you start trying to figure out, how do I build a game that does those things? And you think about mechanics, and you think about environments, and you think about atmosphere, and you think about sound, and you think about all those things, and they start to build out this bigger, ever enlarging design document. But for your pitch, what you want to do is take all of those things that you've learned and now edit them back down to this core thing that really grabs us. And that reminds me that I forgot something already. On the first page, the second page, the third page, and however many pages you have, which needs to be probably less than 10, always feature art. Always feature the thing that gets across the identity of your game. It's funny that you have to tell this to people a lot of times, but you know, video games, the name is right there in the name, video games. This is a visual medium. So take advantage of that. Show us your concept art. Show us the things that are going to grab us. In these first 2 slides of your deck, the key pieces to get across are, we're building this thing that's going to be amazing. It is a shooter, strategy game, narrative story, interactive novel experience, whatever it is. It looks beautiful, and we know what we're doing because we're these people. We need this much money to do it, and here's what it is. And the rest of these pages, you're just going to detail those things. So you know, here's where you'll talk about why you're making it, and this is a great spot to talk about the personal experiences of your team and why this art speaks to you, right? And why we should care about it. And then you're going to talk about your capabilities. I spent a little time on this yesterday. Oftentimes students will be pitching us, right? You come out of school, you're like really excited about the game you're making, but you're thinking, I don't know, man, we've never made a game before. So it's interesting, some of the colorful descriptions people give themselves of what their experience is when they don't actually have experience. And it's not like we don't know that. I mean, it's cool if you're building a narrative, that's fine. It's also really okay to be completely open about what your experience is, whether it is that you've been a apprentice someplace or an intern someplace or have gone to school and earned a degree. And all of those pieces allow us as your publisher or potential publisher to assess what we will need to bring to help you get your game finished, because that's our job. Our job is to help you build your vision. This is a creative process. You're giving us a creative pitch, and we're trying to do all of the things to support you so that you can get that thing made as a finished game. So I'm gonna go through the rest of this really quickly. Sales projections, you know what? Shove that to another day. If you get to that point, we can help you with that. And the materials that we have on our website will help you with that as well. Calculating numbers is really difficult for all of us. Funny story is that the way we usually do it at Raw Fury is the scouts like myself, we come in and we're really optimistic, and we like, we'll come in like, this game's going to do 50,000 copies within the first 3 months. And sales comes back and they're like, really? Did you look at the comps? And so then we go back and forth, we argue back and forth, and typically the way that you reach a quote win is an interesting back and forth and a series of negotiations. But we'll go back to this part here at the beginning. If you've done that vision work, you've given us as scouts the sword and shield to take on the sales team. And I'm not saying that like we have to take them on, right? But the sales team's job is to give us a reason to say no, right? Because their whole job is to make sure that we're not losing money. And our job is to come in and go, but this is a really cool game and we really need to make it. So arm us with the right tools to get your game across the finish line. What else do we want to do? I'm going to really get to the questions. Production. This is another thing. I wish I could walk around. I'm a walker. I'm a walker. The production timeline. So we typically see one of two things. Either we see some hand wavy stuff here that's like, oh, we're going to make the game. It's going to take 6 months to a year to do this and blah, blah, blah. Or we see super detailed charts and graphs. We don't really want either of those. The super detailed charts and graphs are something you're going to build with the producer once you get signed. And it depends on really what your production looks like in the end. You're going to scope out the game, and that will be a detailed process. And it also needs to be more than hand wavy, because if it's hand wavy, we're sort of worried that you don't exactly have a full grasp of what it is you're trying to make. What we really want to see is we are here right now. And by the way, Raw Fury always wants to see a playable, and we could talk about that. I'll be in the little side room over here. That's a whole other story, and that's a big story to talk about. But we really want to see a playable. And we want to see in this timeline, we are here now, and here's what we did to get there. And here's what we think we need still as remaining pre-production time to get to a place where we're ready to ramp into full production. And here's what we think full production will look like. And here's what we think, polish, hardening, and gold master will look like. If you can put those three pieces together in a timeline that's orderly and put a reasonable amount of estimated time against them, that's awesome. That's exactly what you need to do for us. Bonus slides. Why? Oh, yeah, always flatter us. I mean, who doesn't want to be flattered? If you're looking to date a partner, tell me we look good. And that's it. Okay, so how much time do I have, Colin? Oh, I have 2 minutes. So I can take 2 questions. Yes, 2 questions. No one has any questions. You're kidding me. Wow, I went through all that trouble just to get a question. No, you cannot give me a drink. Yes. What does that look like for studios that have to sign? What's the difference? Yeah, so the differences are typically going to be that we fill in the dollar amounts and we fill in the dates that things are to be delivered. And they're actually, that's really easy for us because we don't work with milestones. So the only thing that is to be delivered is the gold master. And then the little things that we might change would be terms around notifications. So for example, if you want to go do an art book and you want to do it with somebody else, we would sometimes, I think we ask for a 30-day notice, but you might ask for a 14-day notice, and we might come back and ask for a 21-day notice. Like things like that are the sort of things that we change. As far as revenue share terms and conditions, those all pretty much stay the same. Actually, they all just stay the same. Yeah.
How far ahead do you expect that you can come out? Are you looking for 12 months on that?
Yeah, so he's
12 to 18, and also what sort of budgets the
Two awesome questions. Those are the questions. That's the kind of questions I wanted. Okay, so first question was, how long of a development cycle do we expect to look at in games that are being pitched to us? And the second one is, what sort of budgets are we looking at? The two questions go completely hand in hand. I would say that Raw Fury in particular is built on a partnership model. So we want to be a 50-50 partner with the people that we work with. We don't charge you for the things that publishers do. So we provide marketing, we provide PR, we provide testing and support and all those sort of things because that's what a publisher does. And we also would like to be involved early enough to help guide the project, but late enough that the project is already solidified. So the quick answer to the question about why we want a playable is that going from paper to playable is a big moment. And that's when your game definitely starts to form into concrete, right? And we don't want to have anything to do with that part because that's sacred. But once you got this part, we've got a lot of people who have made a lot of games for a long time, and we really think we can help you with that part. As far as budgets go, I won't say that we don't have a top end. It's, we're not AAA. So, a few $1 million is the top end. But our best games and some of our most beloved games have been, $50 to $250, $300,000 projects. And how long do they run? It depends on the size of the team, how much time that money will last, right? But I would say that depending on, the smaller side project, you're 18 months. And on the larger size, you're 28, 30 months. Longer than that, it's also really hard to know where your landing spot is. And if you're not AAA, it's too risky. I would de-risk that. As a matter of fact, I've looked at some pitches that were like, we're going to build this. And the answer is, but by building that, you're so far out, you don't really know where you're going to land. So build this and then build this. Cool. Thanks. Get at me. I'll be over here. Also, Garnett at Raw Fury. And then on our website, just rawfury.com, under contact, you'll find developer resources. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Garnett. So we're going to take another break just now. All of our speakers will be in the little alcove at the side, so go up, grab them. We also have a bunch of food left. So for 5 minutes, anyone that has already ordered food and wants more, go help yourself. After 5 minutes, anyone just go up and help yourself because it's great food and we don't want to see it going to waste. Well, then after that, if there's anything less, we have a food fight. See you shortly. Okay, folks, just another wee reminder, if you haven't already bought raffle tickets by making a donation to the Ukrainian Red Cross Just Giving page, please do that. The address is ukraine.gamestalks.live. That's ukraine.gamestalks.live, and that doesn't matter if you're here in Glasgow or watching online. Thank you very much for all the donations so far. We'll be totting them up and starting to draw tickets about 9:30. So to move on with our next speaker, also joining us from London, like a number of other speakers today. Lockdown's seen a number of people move out of London, and I'm pleased to say our next speaker now counts Edinburgh as his home. I've been a huge fan of the studio since before it was a studio, so please let me introduce to you the CEO of Glitchers, Max Scott-Slade.
Hiya. I think I really annoyed Colin by making him put a different slide in for every one of these events, so sorry about that. Yeah, my name's Max. I'm from a studio called Glitchers, and I'm based in Edinburgh now, so that's quite cool. I'm kind of trying to say hello to everyone because I haven't really met any of you yet. So the pandemic's been pretty harsh. So yeah, from London, England to Edinburgh, Scotland, land of the haggis and blue cheese gyoza, I found out at the beginning of the week, which I kind of find like haggis is sneaking its way into every single food item up here, which is quite cool, but this is a scary find. It's also land of the amazing tap water. I don't know if you've experienced London tap water, but it's horrible and it's basically thick. But it's also apparently land of the game developer. So yeah, reveal yourselves. Yeah, and this is Glitchers. And I sort of, yesterday, I told a slightly different story to the one I told when I was in Edinburgh, actually. And I got thinking after listening to a few of the conversations that we've been having at this event, and I started to think about why I make games, right? Why any of us make games? And I think for me, I always made games because I did it with my brother, Josh. We grew up together. We were teenagers just making stop frame animations that turned into Flash games, and that turned into accidentally a career. We sort of stumbled into it. And what was quite cool about that was it was just completely natural. And I think now when I talk to people, it's not such an easy way in. It's a bit more difficult than that. But back then it was really crazy. We did one game that was a Flash game that was a hit. Then we ended up working with Coca-Cola like straight away. And then from that, we funded the first year of the studio. Like those kind of stories don't really exist now. And we went on to work with Warner Brothers and all kinds of cool companies like Channel 4, making some really interesting games. And something happened after about 6 years. My brother got diagnosed with schizophrenia and he sort of fell off the face of the earth for a bit, and I didn't know what to do. And I set up Glitchers as a temporary thing, and it's now like the thing I do, which is really sad. I mean, Josh is still really ill, and lots of people came up to me yesterday. I'm like, "What's going on with Josh now? Is he like better? Is he like a superhero?" No, he's still ill. It's a terrible thing. But the reason I make games, I realized, changed when I started Glitchers, and it was that I now make games beyond entertainment. This really nice phrase that BAFTA came up with, which I sort of stole. And it's actually a really great place to be because for me, games have always been, quite a personal thing. And this is a way that I can start to give back to something else that's bigger than just entertainment. So Glitches focuses on making games that solve a problem, and those problems are far and wide. I think someone said yesterday, we really are like at the tip of the iceberg of what games can do. It's such an umbrella term, and I think when you describe it to somebody, they can say, "Oh, it's just people shooting stuff," and I really just don't believe that. And so I've managed to carve out this niche for myself in this space and build some quite interesting things. Sea Hero Quest is one of these. This is a game I launched back in, I think it was 2016 now. It was like a casual mobile game in conjunction with Deutsche Telekom, a bunch of neuroscientists, and the objective was to build something that would help them with their dementia research. And how cool is it that a casual mobile game could even do that to start with? And the scientists wanted to have 10,000 participants because they were trying to compete with the next biggest navigation study, which was 599 people. And I said, we can do 100,000 in the first year. And we did that in the first 10 hours after launch. We ended up having 4.5 million participants over so many different countries, different genders, different ethnicities that would otherwise not even get seen or heard. And it revealed this whole part of research that is very homogenous and focused on, basically men in Western countries, because that's where the money is. Opened my eyes to the fact that there's this whole underserved market, and the same drugs that work here don't work in other places the same. So that again triggered me onto doing other things and thinking about, wow, games are so powerful. What can we do with them? We did some other healthcare projects, but I'll talk next about something which is completely different, just to try and demonstrate the breadth of what's possible. Where's the timer? Oh, there it is. Methven. So this is a game that we did, which was basically utility. And I think utility and games actually are really close. We tried to make utility boring, I think. And I say we don't. Not in this room, but utilities are usually boring. When you look at, oh, I've got this cool alarm clock. It's got a huge LCD thing, and it just looks exactly like an alarm clock, or a pocket money tracker for kids. It doesn't need to be like a horrible list of things. We don't need to do that. And actually, games allow us to do something different. We think differently from those paradigms. So here we've got the utility portion, which is a pocket money tracker for parents. Keep track of their kids' money in their pocket. Each kid has a little kind of avatar, which is these cool little Methven's characters, which they can customize. They earn money and gems through like a, checking off chores. So they can go in and they can tick off a chore. But when they tick it off, they get this egg, which they can smash, and then all the stuff comes out. And then there's this little play area where they can actually make mistakes with the stuff they've earned. Which I don't think we really allow kids to do. So learning about money is a really weird thing, especially in a pandemic, and especially when like physical money is going away and digital money is more a thing. So it was a really cool way to kind of teach kids about finance with a game, which is quite a weird concept, I think. And then here's another sort of stranger concept where we kind of maybe went a little bit too far. So this game never came out, but it was a really cool research piece, which we got paid in full for. So that's, one of the good things about having good commercial clients. A game that is connected to your bank account in real time. So as you spend money, you discover these creatures that represent your spending habits, and you can decide to adopt those spending habits to a little island, and then they start to save money every time you do those things. We had some fun ones as well. We had ones that would save when you didn't do something. So if you didn't take public transport because you walked somewhere, it would save for you then, and all kinds of fun things like that. When it rained, it would save. You'd have little rain characters. But again, it was a really cool way to move away from the numbers. I mean, yeah, there's a few numbers here, but money is being exchanged under the hood. But what you see is cool little game characters. So yeah, that's kind of the kind of stuff that we build. And we're really fortunate to go beyond this and start looking at projects that impact biodiversity and bring it back around to healthcare and trying to tackle some of the really difficult subjects, potentially overlapping with my brother's illness. So yeah, that's me. And I'd love to chat to you about any of these things and maybe answer any questions about games for good, games beyond entertainment. Thanks.
Fantastic. Do grab Max in the next break and chat with him a little bit more. Great of him to come through from Edinburgh and up to Dundee last night. I'm hoping to see more of that. So our next speaker has also come up from London especially. And this lady, she always corrects me on my wording, but my take on it is that this lady is responsible for £180 million going out to game developers. So this is someone you want to know and you want to pay attention to. This is video games tax relief. It's managed by the BFI, and here as the BFI's head of certification is Anna Mansi.
Okay, where's the clock's down there. Thanks, Colin. Before I start, I just want to say a big thank you to Colin because he's organised these last 3 events and taken us around from Edinburgh to Dundee and Glasgow. And I just want to say a big thank you. And So, as Colin said, my name's Anna. I head up the certification unit at the British Film Institute, although we don't just deal with film. So we are responsible for certifying video games, film and TV as British to access respective tax reliefs. So I want to talk to you about video games tax relief, and we probably do more promotion for video games tax relief than the other reliefs because the film industry has had incentives and government support for years. The games tax relief's only been in since 2014, and I think it's really important the games developers realise that tax isn't a scary thing. The government wants you to have this money. It's a nice chunk of money for you to help make games. So can I just get a hands up of who's game developer in the audience? Cool. And how many of you heard about tax relief? Great. And how many of you have used it? Okay, there's not so many. So what I'm going to do in my 10 minutes is going to talk to you about debunking some myths about it. I'm not going to go into big detail about the point system because we can help and talk you through that. But it's explaining things that you might have heard that might have put you off of claiming it. So these are the misconceptions about VGTR. You have to have a red phone box in your game. You've got to put a Union Jack in your game. I mean, in Scotland, why would you want to put a Union Jack in your game? So yeah, you don't have to put any iconographic British elements into your game. You make the game how you want to make your game. You can set it in America, you can set it in space. You might not get points for it being in America, but you will get points for it being in space. But even if you don't get points for it being in America, you'll get points in other sections. Only narrative games can pass the cultural test? No, any type of game can. Puzzle games, VR games, narrative games can as well. We've had interactive content that has been in museums and it's VR, and you have to make choices and do things. So that would qualify as a game. We've had sort of things that are film and they're interactive as well, and they've qualified. And sometimes we've had VR things that people thought about VGTR, and actually because they've managed to get it released at a festival, we said, well, look, go down the film route. So we're trying to be as accessible as possible. What I would always say is always come and talk to us. It's limited to certain platforms. No, it's not. It's for any platform. As I just said, we've had things in museums. It's mobile, it's PC, it's Nintendo, it's Xbox, any platform you can think of. As long as it's available to the public, that's absolutely fine. Day 3, and I've actually managed to remember some platforms. On day 1, I forgot what platforms are. I haven't done a talk in public for 2 years. It's not only for large budget games, it's for any size budget game. So the first game we ever had through in 2014 was only £10,000. So it's open for the big studios, it's open for small indie developers, it's open for any type of developer. The application process requires an accountant. You may need an accountant. It's a two-stage process. Or it can be a two-stage process. So there's interim certification and final certification. You can do both, and a lot of developers will do it interim because you can claim as you incur expenditure, or you can just wait and do final. At the final stage, depending on what points you need to claim in the test, you may need an accountant to verify those points. We will always advise you to go through to get the least amount of points you need in section C and D. And if you can pass in A and B, then you won't need the accountant's report. And you also don't need an accountant to do the application for you for the cultural test. There's a lot of people out there that will say, oh, we can do it for you. They'll charge you. And they end up just being a three-way conversation of, we ask them a question about something that's written in the form and they ask it to you. And why do you need to pay someone to do that when you can come direct to us and we'll talk to you? The game must have a publisher. No, you don't have to have a publisher attached. You can self-publish. I will say some publishers may ask to be the video games development company and want to claim the tax relief for you. So have those conversations up front, have the conversations with your lawyer, whether you're happy about that or not. They would have to demonstrate they are the video games development company making the game. And finally, you have to own the IP. No, you don't. So obviously a lot of you will be creating your own games and hopefully you'll keep your own IP, but you will also do work for hire and you may be doing ports of other games, whether the IP is owned by the original development company. That's fine. You can claim the tax relief on the port you are doing of that game. So why would you apply? Well, it's worth money. Everyone needs money to fund their games. Gary said it earlier, funding, so ask for it. You can't necessarily get the tax relief up front, as I said, but you can get it during development. So if, for example, in here you've got £100,000 budget, you do 6 months worth of work, spend 50,000, you've got your cultural test certificate from us and you want to claim on that 50,000 you've already incurred, you can do. And you can set your own accounting period. So that can give you a little boost to go into the next 6 months. It's worth up to 20% of your budget. So the sort of strange calculation on here, it's capped to 80% of the total expenditure in the UK or the EEA. Post-Brexit, it's still in the UK or EEA. And of all the screen sector tax reliefs we have, this is actually the most advantageous because the film and TV ones, it's just UK expenditure. And, you know, with the games industry, as soon as pandemic happened, working at home wasn't a problem. You can still work with other territories, and that's a really good thing. So on a £100,000 budget, you can claim on 80,000 if that's all in the UK EEA, at a rate of 25%, and so 25 of 80 would work out about £20,000, which is a nice chunk of money to have. And there are financiers out there that are loaning against the tax relief in advance. So it's a model that's been used in film and TV for a long time. And there's a lot of lenders that have taken that model and are using it. So you can get people to lend it to you in advance to help you from the beginning, if you want to do that. But they may charge a fee and they may not give you the full 100% of the tax relief you might get. It may be 90%, but you can ask around. And I will say there are plenty of developers, Gary and Max and Justin, who are all here today from Blazing Griffin and Glitches and Pocket Size Hands. They've all done the tax relief, and, you know, talk to them if you have any concerns about working with us or what it means. So the qualifying criteria, this first thing is the most important thing you need to know. You have to have a UK video games development company set up before development begins. And that has to be responsible from pre-development through to completion. So all the costs run through that company. It's fine if you want to outsource, you know, music or audio, any kind of services, but that company has to be responsible because that's the company that HMRC will pay the money to. If it's set up after development begins, they won't pay out the money. So that's why that's the most important thing. The points test, we can talk you through that, but the company thing is the most important. We can pass you on the culture test, but if the company's not set up, you won't get the money. If you've done a prototype or vertical slice, that's fine, as long as you don't start full-on development without a company set up. And it's really easy to do. I think it takes 48 hours, register with Companies House, and I think it's about £12. It might be a little bit more, but that's not a lot for you to just make sure you get this money. You have to spend at least 25% of your expenditure in the UK or EEA. I'm thinking most of you will be doing 100% in the UK. It has to be intended for supply. So that means it just has to be, it can be free to play, but it has to be available to the public to access or purchase. Qualify as British through the cultural test. So you come to us, we're the first point of contact. We'll take you through the application form. We're happy to talk to people in advance if you're not sure of what you need to fill in, look at a draft. And even if you fill it in and you think that there might be something wrong in it, we don't send it back with a big red cross and say no. We just get in touch and say, oh, by the way, suggest you claim these points instead of this. Have you got this document? That kind of thing. Is it a game? I think you all know what a video game is. The reason we have this question is because when HMRC set up, they put in the legislation the common meaning of a game. So I think I don't really need to explain what is it a game is. Right, I've only got 30 seconds. So this is a very brief overview of the culture test. You only need 16 points to pass. You can see that potentially you can pass in section A alone, which is broken down into what you're seeing on screen. It's setting, characters, storyline or narrative, underlying material, language. It doesn't matter though if it's a puzzle game or if you've got a game set in space, you can get points there. Even if or if you're not getting points in setting and characters, or it's a racing game, we may not have characters, we may split it up into nationalities of, European cars or British cars, that kind of thing. But you can get points in other sections as well. Cultural contribution, you get points for British creativity, British heritage or diversity, and that's not limited to being British because that's not diverse. Then that's on screen or off screen, the teams that are making the game, the stories, the themes, the representations of inclusivity. Cultural hubs is where you're doing the work, and you've got 6 opportunities to get the points in that section. And then cultural practitioners, 8 sections, 1 point for each person it applies to. But even if you're a really small team of, say, 3 people, if you apply, you're the individual that meets all the criteria for the 3 or 4 of those roles, you get the point for every role, even if you're 1 person. So it's as accessible as possible. But they're the things we'd say, just have a chat with us. We'll talk you through and advise you. And this is my last slide. So these are just a few things that you need when you submit. It is an application form. I know people don't like filling in forms, but you get a big chunk of money back for it. We ask for things like budgets, schedules, copy of the game design document, anything you have. Sometimes if you've got a video or you've got something you can show us, we just need to verify. And we have templates of budgets and schedules if you don't have those things yourselves. And that is me. I still went 1 minute 20 over.
Perfect, thank you. Fantastic, thank you very much, Anna. Like I said, a lady very worthwhile getting to know. Okay, our next speaker is someone that has also made the trek up from London and is getting the sleeper back later on tonight. He came up to speak at Dundee a couple of years ago and was brilliant, so I've insisted he comes back. He was one of the co-founders of Surgeon Simulator developer Bossa Studios, and he's someone, no matter how many times I've heard him speak, I learned something new every single time. So please give a warm welcome to Mr. Imre Jele.
I'm particularly proud of the visual design of this amazing slide. You're welcome. It really shows I'm a creative person. Hello, everyone. Hi. And he's doing my timer. Hi. So this tour up in Scotland became a tour of eating endless, just shout at me, endless amount of haggis and became kind of like a game designer anonymous, where I go around and tell people, hi, I'm Imre, and I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing, and many of you in this job in creative industries, you spend a lot of time trying to figure out what you're doing, right? And at Bossa Studios, I was chief what are we doing officer, and it was my job to know what we are doing, and I didn't know what I'm doing. And I discovered that because I made some mistakes, and obviously that was because I didn't know what I'm doing. And then I made some good decisions as well, and afterwards I couldn't explain, which just proved that even then I didn't know what I'm doing. And I think you don't know what you're doing either. And the interesting part of that is that I think that's a good thing. And I would like to give you a few examples of this. So first of all, game design. Now, we don't know what we're doing. We don't know what we're doing because games are infinitely complex. And I'm not just talking about a lot of mechanics, because that's true. But even in the simplest game, what you'll find is that those games stand on the shoulders of giants. Those game design decisions are built on design made by people before you, right? Everything is superbly complex, and not a single person can understand every aspect of a game design. There is a great line about this, which is that no one knows how to build a phone, or at least not one person knows how to build a phone, because you might know how to write the software, or maybe you know how to write the hardware, how to build the hardware, but you're not going to know how to mine the mineral which is needed for that. And I think it's the same is true with game design. You cannot understand every aspect of it. Now, on top of that, games are art. And as such, they involve emotions, and they involve very complicated ideas. So my belief is that game design, because of its effect on the individual, is emotional, can never be fully understood. And as scary as that sounds, I think that's a good thing. It's a good thing because games are not just objective facts. It's not just spreadsheets. And so that means that we can allow ourselves to go beyond just math and apply emotions and apply art on top of that. I almost feel like we have a free pass doing that, because it's not just about numbers. It's not just about logic. From a business point of view, when it comes to forecasting and business planning, we don't know what we are doing. Now, there are people in the room whose job it is to do forecasting, and some of those people are really good at it, right? But I still think that the vast majority of the time, you're just making shit up. And the proof of that is that the industry is full of titles which are supposedly going to be great, and they end up being shit, and vice versa. Crazy ideas which you think this cannot ever work, and then become huge success. I should know, because I made both of those types of games. And I always use this exercise with people who get a bit too full of themselves. And I say, okay, pick any breakout hit, Minecraft, Among Us, or for that matter, our game, Surgeon Simulator. Go back to the point where they started developing that game and find concrete evidence which you think would stand the scrutiny of a board meeting to justify the investment into that game. And almost always, you will never be able to do that, even in retrospect, even knowing that game is going to be successful. Now, imagine when you don't know it yet. It's even harder to do that. This is terrifying, right? Because we should know. Like, it's a huge investment, and especially publishers who make a big financial commitment. For them, it's very important that they know this, and they don't know for sure. And even that, I think, is a good thing. It's a good thing because it proves that there is still a crazy open space ahead of us. There is still new ideas are there to be picked up and discovered, new ideas which do not have evidence to back their existence yet. And I think that's awesome. That proves that we as an industry have so much space ahead of us to explore. And when we come to the audience, we don't know what we are doing. But let me tell you, the players don't know what they are doing either. There were countless evidence of that I've seen, and one of the favorite one, which I often quote, is that there was a game where a gun was criticized to be weak, and the developers made some changes, namely just increased the volume of the sound effect on that weapon, and then suddenly the feedback was that this is the best weapon in the game. I know this because I was the one who made that change, and it was awesome, right? Henry Ford is supposed to have said that if he asked people what they wanted, they would have asked for faster horses and not cars. Players don't know what the hell they want. So players don't know what they're doing. We don't know what we're doing. So I think we're a good match. The beauty of this is that, once again, that there is no set formula, which means that we're not just repeating what everyone else was doing. development has to be a discourse. It has to be a discourse between developers. We're here to talk to each other, and and it has to be a discourse between the developers and the players. You need to understand what your players want, and you have to have a conversation with them, because otherwise you together will figure something out, because right now you don't know what you're doing. So we don't know what we're doing. So what can we do? And I think there are a few things that is on our side. And the first one, which I said in the other speeches as well, is blind conviction. Of course, you need to do your homework, right? You need to do your design. You need to understand your audience. You need to do your forecasting. You need to do all that. But then there is a point where you have to bridge a gap between all the objective knowledge and the end result. And in between, there is this crazy jump you have to do. And I describe it as you put your fingers in your ear and shout, la, 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 and then you jump off the cliff of launch and hope to land in a lake relatively free of alligators. Because what else can you do? And that blind conviction is important. In Hungary, there's a proverb, which I quite like, describing a horse doing crazy stunts. And it goes that horse is really brave or blind. And in this case, that's what you need to do. You have to be either very brave or blind, because you just have to get on with it, because you believe that game needs to be done. It's your vision. You just want to make that happen. Now, there are some more practical things, of course. You can improve yourself and you can improve your games. Both of them are valid tactics to help in the fact that we don't know what we're doing. As far as improving yourself, but we don't know what we're doing, so we have a lot of opportunities to learn, right? And this is a pursuit of perfection. You can never fully achieve it. I believe that we can never know what we are doing. We can just reduce the amount of not knowing, right? And so it's an infinite, constant work, and it can become extremely expensive, right? But then again, you making a game which no one will buy is also very expensive, so you might as well improve yourself. And it's not just about you. It's about person sitting next to you in your same team, in other teams, in other games, even in other industries. It's with every single game what we are creating, we all learn something new. It's one small step for a developer, one giant leap for the game development community. We all learn from each other, and we all better ourselves with every step of the way. And secondly, it's about making the games what we are working on better. Again, we don't know what we are doing, but we can try experimenting. And it is a bit of a survival of the fittest out there. So we want to minimize our chance of failure, right? And we try to experiment with new things. The problem with iteration, the problem with innovation is that there's a lot of unknown with that, right? When we take an idea wholesale, easy, we copy it. When we take an idea and we make it better, great. But innovation, that again is the blind jump forward when you don't know. And there is a quote which I really like, which I'm gonna use, and I'm gonna adapt it to this situation. So the original quote goes something like this, because this is what the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy has to say about flying. I'm gonna find the quote here. 1 second. It says, "There is an art to flying, or rather a knack. The knack lies in learning how to throw yourself at the ground and miss. Clearly, it is the second part, the missing, that presents the difficulties." Now, you can adapt this to game development, and in particularly game innovation, I believe. And that goes something like this. There is an art to game innovation, or rather a knack. The knack lies in learning how to throw yourself at a failure and miss. Clearly, it is the second part, the missing, that presents the difficulties. We don't know what we're doing, and we try to do fix that. We try to know what we are doing, or we try to avoid that problem, but it's really hard. So the question is, why are we doing this? And I think you should ask yourself why you're doing it. I think a lot of us we love making games, and players love playing games, and we love it when players love playing the games that we loved making. There's a lot of love in there, right? The Beatles, obviously everyone knows the song, and I want to make sure that I quote it properly. It says, "There is nothing you can do that can't be done, nothing you can sing that can't be sung, nothing you can stay, but you can learn how to play the game," or in this case, learn how to develop the game. It's easy. All you need is love. We don't know what we're doing, but I do believe that love is in fact all we need to make great games. Thank you.
Amazing as always. Thank you, Imre. Okay, we will take another short break. We'll be back in 20 minutes. So do find, who did we have? We had Max, Anna, and Imre. Find them in the little niche there. We'll be back in 20 minutes. Thank you. Last wee reminder for the raffle. If you haven't already bought your tickets, go online to ukraine.gamestalks.live. £5 of every donation gets you an extra raffle ticket. So even if you bought some already, if you want a couple more, another tenner donated gets you another 2 shots, all our amazing prizes, all our Steam codes, and all the great prizes from all the different companies. Okay, folks. Right, we need to get started. Take your seats. Shh. Thank you very much. I should have been doing that all along. The shushing works. Awesome. Great. Thank you very much, folks. We have got through so many great speakers. We have just got a few left. One of the things that always surprises me about the games development industry is that we much as though we know a certain amount about our own industry, the burgeoning esports industry is something that a lot of us as developers don't actually know much about. So we have the perfect person here to correct that and tell us a little bit more. So from the British Esports Association, we have their Scottish liaison officer, Mr. Mark McCready. Welcome, Mark.
Hi, everyone. Third night. It's good to see you all. Yeah, so thanks for the introduction. I'm here to talk about what esports is. I'm sure quite a few of you know about it, but you might not know exactly what is actually happening around esports and who British esports are, what we've been doing as a national association, and really just to get you a little idea of what's going on and what our real purpose is. So a bit about me. I'm the Scottish Liaison Officer. So as part of the British esports, I work with a lot of organisations, governing bodies, even things up to the government and the council across Scotland to help basically promote esports, inspire the new generation. I work a lot with schools as an education assistant as well, helping develop some educational materials with our partners Pearson, where we developed the BTEC qualification, which I'll touch a little bit on later. But I've also been in the industry for about 4 years, part-time and full-time, working on things like the Scottish Esports League, which some of you might know from the likes of Resonate. Also looking at setting up my own society a few years back and running that for 2 years. Into some of the things I've done as the Scottish Liaison Officer of setting up the Education Conference, which is an annual event we run. The Scottish College Cup is an initiative to encourage some of the colleges to get involved in esports. And then also the Microsoft Esports Teacher Academy, which we've done last year. So who is, or what are the British esports? British esports was set up in 2016 with permission with the British government. So we're set up as a national body, not a governing body. As you guys will know yourselves, the developers and publishers yourselves are the governing bodies of your game. The best way to sort of explain where we fit in is something more along the lines of like the Olympics Committee, where we look to sort of facilitate these popular games, use them to create sort of social impacts and promote the benefits of getting involved with playing video games at a competitive level. So one of the things we do look to do is promote esports titles, encourage people to get in. Doesn't matter what esports title it is or what video game, but to really just inspire, look to put structures in place, support and encourage people to play video games. And we work with a wide range of people. We've got an advisory board chaired by Andy Payne, our chairman of the association, but we work with people across the games industry, people from the game development sides, also into people like esports organizers, tournament organizers, and other sort of associations around this as well, including the likes of UKI, and like I said about the government as well with their international trade committees. And really, I just want to show you this slide. You all know it yourselves, but it's something that I like to show a lot of educators and teachers in this space is video games are great. I think all of us are here because we love playing video games, we love creating them, and we love having everything to do with them. And what we want to try and encourage is that playing video games isn't bad. It's everything in moderation. It's something that we should actually be proud of as we start going into this space. If you're coming through school and you're looking for a job, why not put down gaming, or that you've participated in a school esports team, for example, or you're part of a gaming society, or you look to develop some games at the side as a hobby part-time as a student in high school, going into college, university. We want to sort of encourage this, make it more of a, not a stigmatism, but try to release that stigma around basically playing video games as a whole, and into the esports side as that facilitator. And it's inclusive. Some of you will know, it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter who you are. It's a safe space for anonymity. You can go online, play. Nobody needs to know you have a disability. They might think you might be really good at the game, really bad. It doesn't matter. You have your sort of rankings. You've got different entry points into the game to help support you getting involved. And it's something that we've seen is quite encouraging, working with National Star College, with one of the young people on the screen. I know I'm saying young people, and I'm quite young myself, but working with people going through high school and college, and he actually was on stage playing FIFA. Nobody actually knew he had a disability, and he was playing against other students across the UK. And they were so inspired because it was the first time he actually got his hands on playing FIFA. They went through ups and downs, scoring goals, getting scored on, won a couple of games, lost a couple of games. And the most inspiring point is, actually, you can do this. You've not been able to practice, you've not been able to put some of the time and your passion, whereas other people have, and now we should be trying to encourage that accessibility. And here's some of the different angles. I'm talking about esports, but I'm talking about the games industry as a whole. We've developed a qualification with Pearson, the BTEC qualification I touched on earlier. And these are some of the examples that we use as career pathways, one of which is the game development side. We also talk about wider tech skills. With the esports qualification we do, we're not saying that you're coming along to learn about esports. We're asking you to come along and use esports as that hook to come and learn about likes of business management, law, even events management, into production, broadcast, games development, touch on these areas to help facilitate and enable people to go further and get inspired at that sort of further education level. And one of the things we've been most passionate about is actually our student championships. So I really need to upgrade the top graphic to include a bit more in Scotland. But we actually have 14 colleges in Scotland now involved in esports with esports clubs. Every university also has its own esports society, and most of them actually compete on a weekly basis. I'm sure we've got a couple of students in the room that are part of gaming societies and may know of esports societies. But it's something that's happening around us. It's something that people are getting involved with, and they're creating those identities with their education institutions. And it's something we're trying to encourage is get industry involved, look how you can support and invest in young people's futures, using their hobbies and their passions. We're right now actually with 90 schools and colleges across the UK, including the next one I have coming up, Alva Academy, which was the first school in Scotland to actually get involved with esports. Emma, who's behind the society and setting it up, is fantastic. She's actually a music teacher. No gaming development background, no understanding of how the tech skills work. But she went through university playing video games, met a bunch of great people, some of her friends that she still has today, and stays connected. And she's like, if I had this at school, why wouldn't I have this or want to do this? So one of the things she did was she set up Alva Academy, eSports Society, or Alva Alliance, created this logo. Some of the students are now wearing T-shirts with it. They've got badges, stickers. They're proud of basically what they're part of. And they've had that facilitation of having fun with it, of this is who I am, this is the team I'm on, and these are some of the perks of why I'm good at what I do. Some of them you could probably read on the screen. I don't think it's too small. But we've also invited along to some sort of industry events as well, like tapestry events at CDN Expo, where they could go around, see what the production value is like, and gain some insight into what careers they could get into in the future. Here's a couple of jerseys. that we sort of promote as well. This is actually Falmouth College down in England. We actually had Scottish champions in June. They definitely brought the audience. Sounded about 50 of them. There was only about 10. And as you can see with the flag, they were very proud of coming down. They were the only Scottish team there, and they made sure that they were heard while they were there as well at the same time. And something we also look to do is encourage that online safety space. Something I want to touch on is just, while you are looking at online multiplayer, just think about how that experience goes for young people, and making sure that they're actually in a safe space, that they can get in touch with yourself if they are being pursued in a way, whether it's sexual harassment, whether it's abuse, that there are some functionality that they can report back and provide that feedback to you as well. Because we also want to protect young people and not ruin the video game industry for them at the same time. And just to touch on, just for the last minute, we also invested in the National Esports Performance Campus in Sunderland. So we invested a multi-million investment, which will go become the national hub, basically. The next topic I'm going to talk about will really impact on this, but it's going to be a performance campus for teams across the UK to come use this facility. It's going to have educational ties in with Sunderland College, University of Sunderland, to basically use this area, connect with local organisations, companies, look to connect with local publishers as well in the space to really inspire young people and provide that industry connection into the northeast of England as well, but also act as a national hub for Scotland as well. As we know, it's not that far down. In the eSports championships and the Commonwealth Games. So for the first time, we're actually going to have a Team Scotland. So there's going to be an official Team Scotland. There's going to be Esports Scotland Association that's going to be formed, along with England, Wales, Northern Ireland. There's going to be Isle of Man, Guernsey, Jersey, others like Gibraltar's British Overseas Territories. So there's going to be a huge amount of national representation, and it's trying to look at creating this platform to inspire young people as well and showcase what are the different angles. If you're really good at a game, why not come along, have this experience, just like you would with football or any other sort of sport, tennis, badminton, or any martial art as well. So we really want to amplify that this is a fantastic activity. It's something you should get involved in and help inspire the next generation. And if you want to get in touch with me, there's a couple of ways you can through Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. But thank you very much.
Just a second. 2 minutes, 1 minute.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Mark. We're going to do something a little off schedule if my computer starts behaving itself. I'll just bring up our logo. So basically, throughout this week, we have toured around Dundee, Edinburgh, and Glasgow, and it's been a lot of work. And much as though I did a bunch of the organising before we turned up in these places, I couldn't have run these last 3 nights without the help of a number of people. So I just want to invite them up briefly to introduce themselves. So first up, the folks that have checked you in on the door, the folks that have sorted out various problems. We had problems with catering last night in Dundee and countless other things, and collected all the money for raffle tickets. I'd like Sean and Ruben, that are students up at Abertay, to come up and just say a minute about what they're doing and what they're hoping to do. Come up, gents.
So, can everybody hear me well? Nice. So as you can see, we are not prepared for this. But we do have a saying back at my home that when these type of things happen, we just need to unshit ourselves. And that's basically what I'm doing. So as Colin said, I'm Ruben and this is Sean. We are Abertay students. I'm in 2nd year and he's in 3rd year, but we are in the same course. We're studying programming for video games. And besides that, we are also members of the Abertay Game Development Society. What can I tell you about myself? Well, we don't have many screws. That's why I'm here right now talking. We're programmers because life choices said, hey, why not a programming? You like computers, you like games, join them together, have fun. It's not fun, not at all. It's very complex, especially as university students. And me and him being here, looking at everyone, looking at the industry, meeting people, it's very valuable for us because it's very different from uni, as you may know. And it gives us such an insight, and it's so good to meet you all, to understand the caveats and the things that happen in the industry. So what I'm trying to say is thank you all for your patience on us, on the checking in, on the catering. I hope me and Sean were really good to you and we did well. And thank you so much, Colin, for letting us speak a little bit, and for everyone who talked to us. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, gents. So if you haven't spoken to them properly already, please do up and chat to Sean and Ruben. I'm sure a bunch of you will be working together at some point in the future, so you might as well get to know each other now. So thank you very much, gents. I would also like to welcome up Ethan. Ethan has been doing all our audio engineering and looking after the live stream that's been going out. We had some difficulties on the Tuesday night because of the practicalities of the venue. However, last night and tonight have gone swimmingly. We have got this sorted, and it's all thanks to this man. So please, Ethan, come up and say a little bit about yourself, please. Ethan.
Hello. So I'm much less prepared than even Sean and Ruben were. So hey everyone, I'm Ethan. I'm the guy selling the very exclusive HeyStephenHey Lego sets right up the back there. Oh wait, no one's meant to know about that? Oh god. So hey, I'm Ethan. I'm a sound designer. I love games. I love making games. I love doing sound for games. That's my thing. And I want to speak to every single one of you, although I doubt we'll have time for that. I am starting a PhD in September, and I would love to talk to anyone who's remotely interested in that, or not. That's also fine. I don't have any slides, so I can't give you my socials. But yeah, I would love to speak about what games you're making, what you're doing, what kind of projects you're involved with, and if I could be help in any way. So yeah, come and get me. I'll be at the back selling the Lego sets. Oh God. There's some great stories that the minibus driver will tell you. That let's not go there. No, that's a very niche joke. Scotland's beautiful. So yeah, please come speak to me. I do sounds. I know there's not really any sound people here, but you all need sound. I know that. So come speak to me, please. Thank you.
See, he says he wasn't prepared, but I told him at the start of the night, I'm going to put him up talking. So that's why he had to get the audio working. You know, otherwise we couldn't have heard him. That's not true at all. He's been brilliant. Thank you so much, Ethan. Okay, our next speaker is from a little company called NVIDIA that make a few billion chips that you can't really do much in the way of PC gaming without involving them. He is their European Dev Relations Director, I think is his title. It seems to change every single time, in my head at least. But please welcome up Mr. Phil Scott.
Just a quick word before I start. So I've known this guy for, what, 25 years, right? This guy is magnificent. He does an awful lot, right? You do not know how much he does for Scotland, right? He is an absolute ambassador for Scotland, but also a fantastic ambassador for the games industry. And nobody's really said thank you to him yet. So on behalf of all of the speakers, on behalf of all of the people that have attended, all three. We'd just like to show a little bit of appreciation for Colin. Absolutely fantastic. Colin McDonald. And Anna, do you want to?
It's chocolate and alcohol. It's a nightmare. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. Thank you very much.
Colin McDonald. So, right, let's talk about an upscaler. Why do you need an upscaler? So I'm going to give you a scenario, right? We all like scenarios, don't we? So we're going to have this imaginary game, right? Super San Francisco Simulator. And this is a survival guide to GDC. Is anybody going to GDC? Okay, right. So this is a lifesaver. And that is San Francisco. And it's perfectly rendered, and it's so perfectly rendered, it's actually a real photo. But this is kind of what we're striving for these days. We're trying to get ever more real. But as we get ever more real, things get ever more complicated. And for it to be a good game, you realistically want it to run at really good frame rates. You know, that's what people expect these days. So you've made this game, you know, you've been working on it for years, and then eventually some bright spark in the company, you know, there's always one, thinks that you should QA it, right? So what they do is you kind of bundle it all up and you fool yourself, high-fiving yourself around the whole studio. You know, you're like, yay, let's send it off to QA. It's going to be awesome. And off it goes to the QA lab, right? And, you know, you're still high-fiving yourself. You're a bit weary. You've been in the pub. You know, you've just done a brilliant job, right? And it comes back from the QA lab and it's 33 frames a second. And you basically shit yourself, right? And it's like, oh, that's not good enough. That's really not good enough. What do we cut? You can't really cut much, right? But there are some things that you can cut. And at this point, I'm going to point out that all rendering is actually a giant cheat, okay? You're rendering a world with infinitely thin triangles. It's not really that real, is it? So what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the fact that we're basically doing this giant David Copperfield act and basically hoodwinking everybody because we're telling them that's a real world. And actually, it's not. It's a bunch of triangles. But you're in shock, right? You're in shock because that 33 frames a second still hasn't gone away, right? And what's worse is what we're talking about is sort of like screen resolutions. Anybody got a 4K monitor? Yes, somebody up there? Yep, 4K monitor over there, right? And it happens all the time, right? You get these poor performances. And this is kind of one of the things that we've been working on at NVIDIA for a long time is performance. And 4K is this number of pixels. This is more pixels than there are people in Scotland. It's a fact. It's a fact. Even with all the tourists, right? It's more pixels than people in Scotland, right? Now, what's worse, right, is it doesn't end there, right? You've got 8K on the horizon. Anybody want to take a quick guess how many pixels there are in 8K, right? A lot. A lot, right? 33 million pixels. Now, this is common. This is common for real, right? You know, you've got 4K screens or higher on laptops now, and they don't have the same amount of rendering power as a big desktop, right? So we've got to come up with something that sort of solves this problem, right? So upscaling, right? We're going to talk about upscaling. And upscaling is the solution to this problem, right? So what we're going to do is if you imagine that this frame is 33 frames a second, that's 30 megahertz a frame, 30 milliseconds a frame, sorry. And what we're going to do is we're going to do what everybody would do and basically throw away a load of pixels. We're not going to render them. The fastest work you ever do is the work you never do, right? So a lazy programmer is a good programmer because he does less work, clearly, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to take a 4K image, we're going to upscale it, and we're going to get 80 frames a second. And done correctly, you'll have no perceivable image loss. Job done. And in some cases, it might even look a bit better. So how do we do this? Well, That 1440p image is less than half the number of pixels. But because we have things like overdraw and all this other stuff that goes on in rendering, you're not just rendering 8 million pixels, you're probably rendering something in the order of 32 million pixels or even more. What the upscaler is going to do is it's going to take that 1440p image, and it's going to turn it into a 4K image. But you could also not stop there. You could go all the way up to the full 8K image if you've got such a display. And if your bosses haven't bought your 8K images, now's the time to ask. Now, this is realistically where it looks like, right? On the top here, we have that 4K image. And over the same amount of time, what we're doing is I'm showing you the difference of how the frames stack up. So below the line is the image, the upscaler, the image, the upscaler. You're getting the same image out of either. So why would you not get faster frame rates? It just doesn't make sense. So what you do is you actually draw this. Now, this is a public safety message, right? And this public safety message is how you do GDC. Now, down in the bottom right, you see I've put all this upscaled AI on, upscaled UI on. Down in the bottom right is the Moscone Center. That is where you're supposed to be, okay? And the trick to GDC is you go to the Moscone Center and you get seen by loads of people, right? But then what you really do at that point is you actually bugger off across to the other side of the map where the other arrow is pointing. That is the Thirsty Bear, right? And that's where you'll find virtually everybody that goes to GDC, including Colin. True? True. So what we've got these two world-class upscalers, right? One is a temporal solution. It's called DLSS. People have probably heard about it. There's a lot of games have shipped with it. And it uses the fancy AI stuff. But realistically, what it is we've had supercomputers crunching numbers for a very long time to actually generate the neural network to actually synthesize these pixels. On the other side, we've got this thing called NIS, and this is a spatial upscaler. Now, the great thing with this one is it works on every single GPU out there. It even goes way back in time before RTX was around. Works on all vendors. It's MIT license. If you want to get the code and mess around with it and try it and do stuff to it, go ahead. Knock yourself out. You know, you might even be able to want to do a pull request and actually show us what you've done. That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? But it's easy to try in any game. And the reason it's easy to try in any game is there's plugins. Any UE4 developers, any Unity developers in here? There's a couple back there, right? There's a plugin. You can do NIS and DLSS in the plugin. DLSS has native support in Unity, in the latest version of Unity, but also the source code's there if you've got your own engine. It's pretty cool. But the best one is you can do a no-code test for NIS, right? Everybody like a no-code test? Takes 5 minutes, less. Go to the desktop, latest driver, right-click, click on a few things, click image scaling, and then select it, and then run your game. And it will do NIS. Now, I wouldn't recommend that you ship your game in this way. You actually use the plugin, because that's far too many clicks for people. People don't like too many clicks, right? So what I would suggest is try it out, see if you like it. If you like it, give it a go. Take the code, stick it in. Bit of advice. NIS is a great pipe cleaner for your DLSS pipeline. It gets things right. You can do your UI overlay and that kind of thing with that. But then you can go to the gold standard, which is DLSS. And that takes a bit more work. It takes a bit more effort, but the results are well worth it. And you can look at any amount of press. We do a whole load of marketing as well around DLSS. If you go out there, you'll see that there's a whole bunch of videos from all of our partners. You'll see lots of AAA games are using DLSS, but a lot of indie games as well. There's a great one called Pumpkin Jack. It's a one-man team. He said he wasn't a programmer. He only did blueprints. He did all the art. He did the music himself, but he also added DLSS himself. He also added ray tracing himself, and he still said he wasn't a programmer, right? He's a genius, right? But it's a great game. That guy now has 96% overwhelmingly positive on Steam and has made a crap ton of money. Anybody like a crap ton of money? Yeah, okay, right, that's good. But one way to get a crap ton of money is to get out, get seen, right? So what you want to do is get seen. How do you get seen? Well, you've got a big friend called NVIDIA who likes PC titles, and we like to tell all of our users, about 200 million of them, that your games are out there and they're using our technology. And that's one of the things that we love doing, is working with developers of all shapes and sizes to make sure that the technology is spot on, because our customer is your customer, which is the gamer. And that's what's most important. We all love games. That's the reason I do this. It's why I've done this for the last 35 years. I think that is a thing. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. That's how you get in touch with us. And I think I've just hit 10 minutes spot on again.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Phil. Okay, we will take a final 20-25 minute break before we resume for our keynote speaker. We have celebrity in the house. We will be hearing from him shortly. Meanwhile, do make your way into the little niche to speak to Phil, and my mind's gone completely blank. Who was on before Phil? Mark and Phil, as well as Sean, Ruben, and Ethan sadly has to still work up in the sound booth, but go and speak to Ethan as well in the break. And we'll be back in 20 minutes and we'll do the raffle draw then. Thank you. Okay, we're a little short of time. However, we obviously need to do the raffle. And as part of that, let me just bring up our Just Giving page. We had a target of 1,500. The bad news is the Just Giving page says we've only raised 1,300. Say, oh. The good news is that doesn't include the cash donations that we've taken on the door. The final total is over £1,500. This is amazing. Thank you so much for your donations. I hope you all win prizes, but even if you don't, the money is going to a brilliant, brilliant cause. Thank you so much for donating. It's great that we can have so much fun and learn much and raise money for a good cause. So thank you very much. However, before we hear from our final speaker, let's crack on with the raffle and see who gets to take something home. So I've plugged everyone's tickets from tonight into this wheel of names. And we'll just do a quick draw for each prize. So first up, we have the Steam Code pack from Armour Games. Let's see who is going to take that home. So this could be anyone here in Glasgow tonight or anyone watching online. Sean on the door. Well done. I would love to say this was fixed, but I would have won way more. Okay, so that was the Armour Games prize. Next up is the Yogs Cast Steam Pack. Oh, Justin, maybe. Justin from Blazing Griffin. Well done, Justin. That was the Yogs Cast pack. Next up, we have the Steam codes from our very own Focus Entertainment. So this is a cash sale tonight. Who has ticket 1? Is that Anna? Brilliant. Thank you, Anna. That is going to Games Aid. Thank you very much, Anna. Doubly so. Anna's amazing. Much appreciated. Great. Our next pack is the Humble Games pack. Daniel Livingston, that many of us know. I know he's not here tonight and he's watching online. Thank you very much for your donation, Daniel. We will get you the code for the Humble Games pack. Well done, Daniel. Next up, we have the No More Robots pack. right, another cash ticket from tonight. Number 8. Who's got number 8? Simon. Well done, Simon. That was no more robots. Next up, we have the Modern Wolf Steam Pack. Justin, it looks like Justin's lucky day. Well done again, Justin. Okay, now we have the Game Maker Studio Enterprise license courtesy of Opera. Carl Carlson. Congratulations. And next up, we have the Merge Games physical copy of a signature edition game of your choice. Brian A. McKelvey. Well done. Next up, we have the Scottish Games Week VIP Pass, courtesy of the Scottish Games Network. Brian was hoping to be with us tonight. Unfortunately, he's recovering from COVID, so couldn't, but he'll be in touch through Scottish Games Network with more details, as well as getting in touch with Jack Hardy. Well done. And next up, we have the Zappity goodie bag with T-shirt, £50 Steam voucher, an invitation to join their closed beta, which is also going to go to Daniel. Well done, Daniel. And we also have the British eSports Association T-shirt and hoodie. Andrew Murray, it looks like. Congratulations. And then our final draw that's just for people that have donated today is the £50 Steam voucher courtesy of our friends at Pocket Sized Hands. Oh. To be fair, Justin bought about 6 people's tickets and their food vouchers and donated money, so well deserved. Thank you. So if I've got that right, I think that is, so that was the £50 Steam voucher from Pocket Sized Hands. That is all the prizes from the money donated today. We have one final raffle, which is the Philips HDK Amicable monitor that we only have one of. So everyone that's donated all week, whether it was in Edinburgh, Dundee or Glasgow or online, is now in this. We have 292 names. So you've got a third of a percent of a chance. So keep your fingers crossed. And let's see who wins the monitor. It's someone called Gareth. Is Gareth here? I've got no idea which. Well, I'll look it up. I'll find out where Gareth was. But is Gareth here? Okay, we don't think Gareth was in Glasgow. Gareth might be online. He might be in Edinburgh. He might be in Dundee. But well done, Gareth, wherever you are. Okay, we will move on. We have our final speaker now. He is our keynote. He has flown over from the Netherlands to be with us. He kept me up till 1:30 this morning, but despite that, I still think he's amazing. He is a Dutch-Egyptian industry ambassador and independent game developer. He's developed over 20 titles across pretty much every platform known. He's developed the industry standard dopresskit.com. He's spoken eloquently and passionately at countless global forums and advocated for games communities and independent game developers the world over. Who else could it be? Rami Ismail.
You really got to drop that eloquently from my intro. Like, lots of pressure. Hi. How are y'all? Yeah. Good, good. See if we can keep it that way, or if we're gonna fuck it up a little. So before we start, I'd just like to know kind of who I'm speaking to. Like, how many of you are indie developers? Bunch of you. Who wants to be an indie developer? Is that students? AAA? No AAA. What does everybody else do? Just hanging out in a pub and confused, very confused about what's happening here. Like, why are people talking instead of drinking? Like, is that what's happening? All right. So I really had kind of no idea who I was going to be speaking to. So I actually asked Colin to prepare some slides for me, which he has very kindly done. The slides go as follow. If the computer hasn't crashed just now. Your computer. Did your computer just crash on maximizing PowerPoint? Is that like a real? Can that happen? It looks like it happened. This is beautiful. Wow. It just fucked off. There we go. All right, I'm just gonna reboot PowerPoint. Brilliant. Let's see. Oh. So yeah, he made 6 slides for me. Awesome. Thank you so much. You forgot to put stuff on the slides. Oh, really? Yeah. Oh. That's unfortunate. Oh. So yeah, how about we fill this in? How about you fill this in? And then I'll just give you a talk. Sounds good. Okay. Well, what goes on slide 1? Somebody tell me. What do you want me to talk about? If you don't tell me anything, I'm just going to talk to you about how you should get people that know shit to talk. Which is going to be really boring talk because I'm just going to be yelling at you to ask questions. So, anybody a question for me? Is there such a thing as an original game concept? Wow, I need to learn to type. Originality. Okay, slide number 2. Anybody? I'm going to stare quietly and awkwardly at you until I get a slide 2 from anybody. Students? How often do you get to talk to game developers that have been in the games industry for 15 years? It's like a thing that happens.
All right. Narrative or mechanics first in a game?
Narrative or mechanics first? Good question. Good question. Okay, let's go for number 3. I don't know how to bridge those 2 slides, by the way. That's gonna be that's gonna be a trip. I'm excited. Anything else? Biggest mistake. Oh boy. You know, I'm just going to do one. One biggest mistake is enough. I don't need to talk about multiple ones. Okay. You know what? I'm going to add something here. Okay. Yes. Good. Thankfully, that was a very easy question. Thank you so much for coming to my talk. I guess we can all go drink now. No, okay. Anything else? Is there anything I wish, things I wish I knew? Okay. 5. Who gives a shit? I mean, sure, it's a fun question to sort of philosophically ponder, but also, like, if people love it, does it matter whether it's art? You know, why do we professionally, I don't even know if I typed that right, lie through digital devices to people who pay us to do so and then argue about it on Twitter? Okay. That works for me. 6. There's 2 options. Either you ask me a question or I'm going to do a slide with shit I wish you asked me. Yeah, there's. You know what? We'll keep that for a Q&A. You know, I'm just gonna actually do shit I wish you asked me. All right, let's see what we can make out of this. Hi, my name is. Thank you. So my name is Rami Ismail. I'm a Dutch-Egyptian game developer. What's the rest of the intro? Something about eloquence. I think I've said shit more in the past 5 minutes than people who handle manure do professionally. I don't know what happened just here. Let's talk about originality. Originality is an interesting one. It's actually a really complicated one because there's this idea of originality being something entirely new, and something entirely new doesn't exist. It's not that, and people say that there's no original ideas left. I think that's bullshit. I just think people's idea of originality is completely warped. Every idea comes from somewhere. It has an impetus. It has a reason the idea exists. And a lot of people say, you know, everything is a remix. And a lot of people simplify that down to everything is idea A plus idea B. That's also not how it works. Creativity is very simply your brain mixing a bunch of shit together in a way that hasn't been done before or that isn't logical per se. That's creativity. That's the full thing. People ask me, how do you come up with ideas? The answer is, I don't know. I sit around and I have them, right? They say, how can you have ideas? And I say, I don't know. But the best way to have ideas is to do shit. You want to know the best tip I ever got for creativity, for having better ideas, was go skydive. Why? Because it was something I hadn't done. And that was it. The best way to be more creative, the best way to be original, is to just do things. Specifically, not do the things that you can expect everybody else to also be doing. You don't have to be original with how you're going to be different. But if you're going to be a game developer, don't play video games to be creative. Play video games to learn. You play video games to learn how other people solve certain issues. You play video games to learn the mistakes other developers made, but you don't play video games to be creative. If you want to be creative, read a book, watch a movie, talk to a movie director, try to make music, fail at it miserably like I do. I started to learn to fly airplanes. That's been great. I don't know, pick up dancing. I'm not going to pick up dancing, but like you could, right? But whatever it is, find things to do that aren't just video games. That's where you start with originality, because when you start pulling things in from elsewhere is when you start being able to mix things in your brain in ways that aren't the same. And I think what is interesting, something I didn't realize about games that I learned from my mom actually, is my mom started gaming 3 years ago. 4 years ago, 3 years ago. She had never played a video game again before. She had never touched a controller, and she has been following my career. And I came home from a trip one day, and I said, "Yeah, I went to visit Phil." And she went, "Which Phil?" And I'm like, "Tibetowski." She's like, "Oh, not Spencer or Fish." And I'm like, "What? How do you know all these names?" And she's like, "Well, I read your Facebook." I'm like, "I don't think that you know all that from my Facebook." Like, she's like, "I read the games news." And she was very apologetic about it. Like, she was like entering my world or something in a way that I didn't like. She was like, you know, in my bedroom when I was just didn't want her in my bedroom. But no, she was reading the games news. And I was like, "So you know all this stuff?" Like, she's like, "Yeah, like, you know, I read a bit about this Shuei Yoshida, and I read a bit about like PlayStation and Xbox." I'm like, "You've never played a video game?" She's like, "No." I'm like, "Well, let's set you up." So I gave her Final Fantasy 15. Because it's actually a surprisingly accessible game. Like, don't like it. It's quite straightforward. It's hard to die in it. And the thing that I learned is my mom reached this place called Golden Key in Final Fantasy 15. Is this little seaside town, and in Golden Key is the first time you get introduced to the antagonist. His name is Arden, and he is the Japanese stereotype of sort of like a shifty figure. Has like a slightly tilted hat, long purple hair, kind of speaks with a sneer, little weird music where it goes like da 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 da, with like the last tone like really not in harmony. Everything about him screams sort of like should I trust you? So I was really excited for my mom to meet this character because I'm like, is that just sort of like, does she understand that? Does she understand the trope that is being played to here? He even has like a single wing as an arm. Like his outfit is like, it literally has a, like they went hardcore on this character. And she gets the golden key and she calls me and she goes, Rami, I met this really shady character. I'm like, oh, tell me about him. She's like, well, he's in all black. I'm like, uh-huh. So again, he was standing in this place called Golden Key. I'm like, uh-huh. And she's like, again, he tried to sell me like guns and like weapons and shit. And I'm like, what? So it turns out that 5 steps before the cutscene trigger with Arden is a shopkeeper. And my mom ran into the shopkeeper, and the shopkeeper went, "Want to buy weapons?" And my mom was like, "Hell no!" And she left. And she didn't go back to Golden Key because there was this shady guy trying to sell her guns. And she didn't want to be there. Which is very understandable if you are a 60-something-year-old lady that has lived her entire life without people going, "Hey, guns," right? And I started recognizing this in everything. She would come across a wall that looked a little broken in a different game, and I would go like, "Treasure." And she would go like, "This building looks unsafe." And I go like, "No, blow it up." And she's like, "Is the building gonna come down?" I'm like, "That's not how it is logical that you think that, but that's not how we build these video games. Like these buildings aren't real. They're models, and that part is dynamic, but the rest is yeah, we don't explain that. It's just kind of a it's kind of a thing. It's just a theme. And I started realizing that a large part of how we make games is just built on how we make games. And in a way, that is our biggest weakness as a media, is that it's really hard for us to look beyond what we've already created, right? And there's good in tropes, there's good in rules, there's good in jargon, there's good in this conversation that we're having that is predictable. But it's also good every now and then to just take a moment and take a step back and go like, does it make sense that there's a random stranger selling guns in a seaside town? And also, do we care? There was this big discussion about ludonarrative dissonance. Fucking nailed this transition. Like, holy shit. Damn. About ludonarrative dissonance. And at some point, you know what the conclusion of the argument was? Whether it is okay if your character is like sad about doing their first kill and then the rest of the game is you with a machine gun mowing down enemies. There was a point where we were like, is that okay? Is it okay that we have a ninja who in cutscenes can do like cool backflips and then in the game there's like a wall that's this high and now they're like, oh shit, I guess I'll have to go around. Is that okay? And this was a huge discussion for what, like 5 years? Garnett, you were here for that. Like, that was 5 years? 7 years. 7 years of that shit. And you know what the end conclusion was? Who fucking cares? When it comes to telling stories, mechanics, narrative, it's your choice. There is no right answer. If you want to make a game that's narrative first, tell a narrative first story. If you want to make a game that is mechanics first, make a mechanics first story. I hear a lot of people say like, "Oh, we have a perfect merger of the like." Like, I hear that in pitches a lot. There's not a person who can do that. You have to come from somewhere, right? And this is actually something that I teach people if they pitch games as well. Is if you pitch something, pick a tone. Your tone can be objective, where you just tell people about what the game is. It can be subjective, where you talk about the feeling that it's going to generate. It can be financial, where you talk about how much money you're going to make somebody, but pick a tone. Same thing for a game, pick a tone. Is this a game where your main goal is to get a feeling out of a player? Is this a game where the main goal is for the player to be proud? For the player to be proud, right? Is the main goal to beat something, to learn something, to compete, to explore, to learn? What is your goal? Your job as a designer is effectively that, as Imre said, we don't know what we're doing. And Imre said, how can we get better, right? How can we improve ourselves? I think the best way you can be in the games industry is to get better and better at not knowing what you're doing. Not to stop not knowing what you're doing, because you never will. I've been in this industry for 15 years. I'm here giving a talk. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I don't even know what the next slide is, right? But I'm just going to go at it because I know that I have sort of a direction. Like I know where I want to go with this talk, right? And I'm just going to throw myself at it until I figure out what the next slide is, right? This is how you do it. You pick a direction. You pick your guiding star. You pick where you're going. Nobody else can do it for you, and nobody else will do it for you. And if you ask somebody else what their guiding star is, you're going to get an answer that isn't true for you. If you ask me how I started in the games industry, how I started my career, 15 years of video games, I'm going to tell you make Flash games. And it's going to be utterly useless to you because Flash has been dead for 10 years. So asking other people for their guiding star, for their path into games, for their biggest career tip is not useful because they're not you. You have to find your path. You have to define what your goals are. You have to figure out what your obstacles are. You have to figure out who your team is, what your weak points are, what your strong points are. If you are a narrative kind of person and you like telling stories, please don't be ever convinced that mechanics are more important. Look at the games that are out there. There are plenty of games that are narrative first, and they're successful. But don't let anybody tell you that your game has to have a good narrative either. One of my games is about fishing with machine guns. You fling them up into the sky, and then you shoot them with bazookas. I don't think it's going to win narrative awards. It's a fucking good game, though. I'm very proud of it. Do you want to pay attention to both? Yeah, of course. If you have a mechanics first game and you can do a little work on narrative that ties it together, yeah, beautiful. Please go for it. But if you can ever be convinced to do the opposite, you need to have a little bit more conviction in what you're doing. Oh, wait, is that it? Is that it? Ah, yes. Oh, this makes me so happy. Because in the end, there's no such thing as a wrong choice. There's no such thing as a wrong choice. Let me tell you my biggest mistake. I've told this story 3 times in 3 nights now, but I think it's an important story. When I did my first game, it was a Flash game. It was called Radical Fishing, and it was about fishing with machine guns. And we got $10,001 for that game. We started negotiating at $4,000. Multiple people wanted it. So we told all of them except for one, we told them we want $6,000 because we have better offers. So a number of them went to $6,000, and then we kept one of them. And we told all the other ones, like, sorry, the deal went up again. We need $8,000. And then they gave us $8,000, and we said, like, sorry, we have better offers. We need $10,000. And then we only had 3 people left. So we went to 2 of them, and we said, listen, because we were getting kind of nervous at this point, right? Like, if all of them say no, we're in trouble. So we went to 2 of them, and we said, listen, we would really like working with you. We told both of them this, right? Like, you're our favorite choice. If you offer anything above $10,000, we'll sign it. And one of them came back with $10,001, and we were like, fuck, okay, fair enough. So we signed that one. And then a few months later, Adult Swim came to us. It's sort of like a subdivision of Cartoon Network, Warner, like big company. And me and my co-founder at the time, we looked at each other and we went, fuck, they're big. We're going to ask for way more money. How about we ask for like 3 times as much? So we went to them and we said, okay, listen, for the dinosaur game, $30,000. They looked at us and they went, okay. That's how we knew we fucked up. Because that's not the answer you want in negotiation. You want to go like, oh, not sure we can do that. But they were like, yeah, fine. So, okay, we did the game for $30,000. And then a friend of mine comes to me and they go like, hey, Rami, you worked with Adult Swim, right? I'm like, yeah. They're like, how much did you get? Because we don't know how much can we ask? And I said like, okay, I asked for $30,000, but they just straight up said, okay. Like, I think they can do like at least double. So my friend goes there and he comes back and he goes to me and he goes, we asked for 60 and they just went like, okay. So I got pretty nervous about that. And this is a question that has been stuck with me for my entire career until a few years ago, the person that I negotiated with left Adult Swim. So I called him and I said, okay, mate, listen, you got to tell me this. When we did the dinosaur game, he's like, oh yeah, Dinosaur Zookeeper. I'm like, yeah. He's like, great game. It wasn't. It was bad. We got $30K for it. He's like, I remember. I'm like, out of curiosity, how much were you funding Flash games for on average? And I was like, $250,000. I'm like, what? He's like, $250,000. I'm like, oh, you couldn't have told us. He's like, it's my job to get the number low. You made my job really easy. And that's fair. And here's the thing, I can regret that. But the thing about choices, and this is for every big life choice, for every decision, for every small choice you have in life, there is never a moment in life where you're going to make a bad choice. For one very simple reason. If you had an idea that there was a better choice, you would have taken that. If I go like, okay, here's a cup full of gold and here's a cup full of shit, pick one. Unless you have a damn good reason to pick that one, you want to be funny, you're a farmer, or you desperately need shit for some reason, you're going to take gold. And it will be the right choice. Here's the only bad choice you can make, an uninformed choice. If you go at a decision and you haven't found as much information as you possibly can at that moment, you're going to make a choice that is the best choice you can make at that moment with the information you have, but you just didn't have the information you needed. That's still not technically a bad choice. It's an uninformed choice, right? So it's really easy to regret things. It's really easy to look at your choices in life and be worried that you're going to regret them. The best way of dealing with that is just accept that life has so many variables that you don't really have control over big life choices anyway. Nothing will ever allow you to set the path that you're going to go in on life. Well, you can do this afterwards. You can kind of look back and be like, oh, yeah, that happened and that happened. And oh, yeah, that makes sense. But you can't look at life and be like, okay, I'm going to do this and then that and then this and then that, and it's going to work out. As Imre was saying earlier, like, do you think anybody who worked on Among Us ever had the idea that this was going to be a hit? They made a dumb game about astronauts backstabbing each other. The character is an arc with 2 legs and then a rectangle as eyes. Nobody thought that was going to be a thing. And it ended up being a thing. You think that the people making big games that flop, that they set out to flop? No, of course not. They made the best decision they could at that time. You can regret it, but it won't do anything. It won't help you. Best thing you can do is learn from it. So I learned, ask for more fucking money. Which, by the way, we're going to talk about that in a minute. To ask for more fucking money. I genuinely think that's it. Like, here's the thing. I think the thing I wish I knew most is that I look at everything from a very specific perspective. So do you. At the bar, how much is apple juice? £1.20. Notice I find that expensive. Obviously, it's needed here because it's an establishment. But it's £1.20. That's a lot of money. I'm gonna go home after this, and I'm gonna have some negotiations about like a $3.2 million deal, and I'm gonna say that's not enough money. Right? It's the hats. I didn't recognize that there were hats. I just didn't understand it. I went at that going, $30,000 is so much money. Holy shit. Okay, people come to me and they ask, how much should I ask for my Game Pass deal? They say, because we're thinking of asking for like 70,000, you know? How many employees does Microsoft have? Let's take a guess. 50,000-ish? Might be more, right? Like, sorry? It's many more, right? Like, it's going to be like in the hundreds of thousands. Hundreds of thousands. So if they remove the cheese from the lunch for all employees, they can fund your game 6 times over. That's how much $70,000 is. It is no money. The difference between asking for $7,000 from Microsoft and $150,000 from Microsoft is they don't even feel that difference. It's the same number. They look at the two and they go like, they're the same image, right? It makes no difference. The problem is we're looking at it from the perspective of somebody who's going to go to the bar and then going to go like, fuck, £1.20. That's, I really want an apple juice. I'm going to get an apple juice later. Sorry about this. But that's the thing. Switching the hats. People are looking for things, right? People want to work with you, but you're coming at it from your perspective. So when you come at them for a game, you might be very proud that your game has 12 levels. By raise of hand, how many people here have ever bought a game because the Steam page said 12 levels? Garnett, put your hand out. Nobody, right? Why would a publisher ever buy a game because it has 12 levels? Garnett, put your hand down. It just doesn't matter. You're proud of it because it's 12 levels. But it doesn't mean anything. It means absolutely nothing. It means the same thing as saying this car has 4 wheels. It's like, great. What else does it do? Right? So when you're having these conversations, learn to switch hats. If you don't know what the other person's hat is, talk to somebody who would know. Because the other thing I wish I knew is to ask questions. Is to walk up to somebody who knows more than me and go, hey, listen, I don't know about this thing. What about it? Because the honest truth is that almost everybody in games is more than happy to answer questions. We're not competitors. We're competing, but we're not competitors, right? Like, the games I make compete with the games Imre made, compete with the games that Garnett publishes, competes with the game that... We're competitors. If I get the Steam store page, he doesn't, right? But does that mean we're competing? Not really. It's just this is the way the system works. Only one game can be on the front page, but everybody wants success for everybody. There's no reason for us to fight. There's no reason for us to... The console wars are funny as hell. Who the fuck gives a shit? Play video games, Jesus. But the important part really is that you can just ask. Nobody will be upset at you asking. The worst thing that'll happen is they won't respond. But nobody has a list of like, look at this fucker asking me questions. I'm never working with them. Like it doesn't happen. So just learn to ask questions. I will tell you. Very often I get the question, why do you make games? And I can tell you now that I think games are the most recent expression of playfulness. And I think that playfulness is the oldest language on earth. It is older than language. It is older than music. It is older than anything because we invented those things by being playful. There is a theory that the first humans that were around evolved to be playful because the people who threw stones at trees learned to aim better. That the people who climbed trees for fun learned to climb better. And that when they needed to hunt, they could hit their targets better and they can escape better. It's a theory, right? We don't know if it's fact. It's just the most likely hypothesis. Play is inherent to people. You want to know what the reason was that I started making games? When I started making games, I just sucked at everything else. I'm not good at anything else. This is what I was good at. This was the full story. The idea of having like meaning, of finding purpose, it comes. You don't have to do this up front, right? And the same thing for all these big life choices. I hear people asking me about what should I do, what career path should I follow? Do like me. I don't know what the next slide is. Pick a direction, follow it. If it turns out it's not right, change direction. Same thing with design. Don't try to find a design that works. Don't try to make it perfect. Make it work. Test it. If it works, cool, continue. If it doesn't work, go the other way. But don't try to do everything right. The right choice doesn't exist, and regret is something that you should, try to learn to deal with, because you will make mistakes. You will do things wrong. The one thing I wish that I got asked more frequently is very much to do with, how do you say that? It's actually complicated. It's a philosophical question in part. I think the thing that I wish that I got asked more often is, what is the thing that is your guiding star? Like, how do you pick a goal? How do you pick a thing, right? And I think the problem is that everybody I talk to sets their goal very high because they've heard this saying, like, if you shoot for the stars, if you hit the moon, that's still good or something. I don't fucking understand that one. If I'm aiming for the stars, like, the worst thing that can happen is you hit the moon. Hell no, the worst thing you can happen is you fly forever into eternity until you hit the edges of the universe and, like, fucking explode or something. I don't know what happened. This thing is beeping. Is my order ready? Nice. Yeah. So the worst thing that can happen is way worse than that. Like, here's the thing. Set small goals. Don't set big goals. What the fuck? This is awesome. What all is beeping? This is terrifying. Holy shit. Set smaller goals. I have 1 minute left, so I'm going to make this fast. Set smaller goals. So if you are doing a first game, if you're in indie studio and you're doing a game, you know what your goal should be? Ship it. I don't care about money. I don't care about profit. I don't care about growth. I care about you shipping a game. You know why? If your new situation is you went from 0 ship games, no money, small team, no reputation, to 1 ship game, no money, no team, no reputation, you're a much better deal for a publisher because you've shipped the thing and I know you can finish it, right? Same thing. If you're wondering about a career and where to go, like what studio to go for, don't aim for, well, nobody's going to aim for Activision Blizzard at the moment, but like, don't aim for like the biggest thing. Aim for a thing on your resume that shows that you have experience in this field and get that experience. Stop trying to make your goals like the stars, because if you miss, you'll float forever going nowhere, right? Aim for just something that is like a hop and make it a slightly bigger hop than a step, right? Be ambitious, but don't immediately skip over everything. Because it's really easy to just watch all these talks and go like, these people are successful, these people are successful, these people are... I had no fucking idea what to do. I was making a game about fishing with machine guns. I did not think that I was going to end up here. I was a programmer. I wanted to be a programmer. That was it. Now I'm giving talks about how to make video games and regret and philosophical discussions about fucking goals. Like, I don't know what the hell. This happened, right? So small goals, big steps, and then aim at every time just adding something to your resume that's 1 step better than where you are. If the next situation is exactly here, but 1 thing is better, you're moving forward. And then keep moving forward. Thanks so much.
Wow, that's how you do it. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Rami. That is sadly all we have time for this evening. I hope everyone's enjoyed. We've had such an amazing array of speakers. Sorry if I had to keep them talking for only 10 minutes maximum each, but it's so we could fit them all in. But I think it's been absolutely amazing. A bunch of interesting topics, a lot to learn, a lot of people to follow up with. So I'm hoping to hear about lots of follow-up. So do reach out to the people you've met tonight, and I'm hoping to see more contracts, more business opportunities, more employment opportunities, and everything going forward in the future. We're hoping to do this again in about another 6 months. It's quite a lot of work, so we need to recover for a couple of months. But I'm hoping we'll see you again in 6 months. Would you come again? Yay! Awesome. Good. Excellent. I just need to thank our sponsors again, because without them, this simply wouldn't have happened. There's just too much cost involved. So I'd like to thank Scottish Government's tech ecosystem, InGame, Outplay Entertainment, Hyperluminal Games, Pocket-Sized Hands, Sheridan's, Glitchers, Escape Technologies, Rivet Games, and Speech Graphics. Please give them a big hand. They have made tonight possible commercially. The folks that have made tonight possible practically are Sean and Ruben on the front door and Ethan on the sound desk. Please give them a big hand. The venue need the space back, so we've got to get out of here. The bar, however, upstairs is open, so please take your drinks and go upstairs. Thank you very much for coming along tonight, and we'll see you in 6 months. And thank the bar staff. They've been amazing. Good night.